Out. Good evening and welcome to the June 17th, 2024 meeting of the City of Oregon City's Enhancement Grant Program Committee. And I'm going to call the meeting to order. And I'd just like to go down the line, even though we have nameplates here, I'd like everybody to go down and just introduce themselves. So I'll start with Marie.
Hi, Marie Andrews.
Be sure to speak in the mic.
Oh, sorry. Marie Andrews. I'm a
Just
citizen.
your name's good.
Yep.
Keeping it short.
I'm Eric Bruckbauer.
Christine Lewis.
Mike Mitchell. Adam Marl. Rocky Smith.
Judy Schaefer.
And Denise McGriff. So we actually have a full committee. We are, Commissioner Frank O'Donnell is excused. We generally don't have public comment at this particular thing, so I'm going to skip that. And let's go to approval of the minutes of March 18th, 2024. Has everyone had an opportunity to read them? Even if you were not here, it's okay. You can read them and let us know what you think about them. If you had a chance to watch the last meeting.
I'll move the minutes from March 18 as presented.
There's a second.
Second.
It's been moved by Committee Member Lewis and seconded by Committee Member Mitchell that the minutes of March 18th be approved as submitted. And we'll just do quick roll call.
All right. Well, good evening.
Roll call.
Yes. I've got it right.
Gotta just get, you can just read everybody's name. That works.
Marie Andrews, Eric Bruckbauer,
Here.
Metro Commissioner Lewis,
Aye, not here. You are here, but yeah, it's for the motion.
Aye.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Aye.
Commissioner Marl,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Judy Schaefer,
Aye.
and Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye, so the minutes are approved. So next on our agenda is request for extensions on existing enhancement grants. I will turn that over to staff.
Good evening, everybody. We do have 2 requests for extensions for among the 23-24 enhancement grant recipients. Before I invite them up to speak, I do want to just let folks know some housekeeping. If you do want to need the restrooms, you go out to the main lobby, and it's your first left where the restrooms are. All right, so first person coming to request an extension is Clackamas County Historical Society. Come on up.
Just give your name and city of where the business is for the record.
My name is Stephen Greenwood, and the city is Oregon City. Thank you for considering Moot's request for a grant extension for the Willamette River exhibit, formerly the Timeline Hall exhibit. When we submitted our original application and requested $25,200, we submitted a request to other funders in hopes of pooling together multiple grants to do more to enhance the visitor experience. At the end of June 2023, we received verbal confirmation of a $100,000 grant award. We plan to combine the funds from both grants since the cost of installing an exhibit with interactives can reach $550 per square foot and beyond. The exhibit fabrication and installation of the Willamette River exhibit is delayed because the funding was delayed. We recently received the $100,000 grant and can now begin exhibit fabrication and installation. It can take as long as a year to complete a high-quality exhibit. For a large-scale exhibit at the Oregon Historical Society, it takes between 2 to 5 years. A 6-month grant extension through December 2024 will give enough time to spend all the MEG funds, resulting in a better quality exhibit that shares compelling stories to engage our visitors. This exhibit will include experiential activities and content that shares the history and culture of Clackamas County. We will create an exhibit-based education program for students that aligns with the Oregon Department of Education standards and activities that all visitors can interact with as they walk through the exhibit. CCHS was hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic as the closure of our museums decimated our revenue earned through in-person attendance and programs. Having a new exhibit at Moot will enrich the culture of Oregon City and draw tourists visiting from the Portland metropolitan area, Salem, and elsewhere, seeking to learn the history and culture of Clackamas County. The anticipated outcomes are to develop an exhibit that appeals to new audiences and increases memberships. Our goal is to double general attendance 1 year after the exhibit grand opening. We also seek to boost attendance from school groups. Only 32 students visited the museum during the 2022 calendar year. During the 2023 calendar year, we've raised that now to 464 students. Our goal is to draw 1,000 students to the museums by January 2025. This exhibit will help. Museums provide a sense of community and place by celebrating a shared history. As a 2021 Institute for Museums and Library Sciences report concluded, museums are indispensable connective tissue that keep healthy communities together. What makes Moot important to our communities is that we preserve and share powerful stories of people's lives and how Clackamas County has changed over time. Experiencing museums helps visitors understand how events in the past shaped the present. We learn how people lived, overcame hardships, and can look at the past with the goal of creating a better future. Thank you for considering our extension. I'll take some questions.
We probably will. Hang on just a second. So staff, we did not receive a report on these extensions, or did we?
Yeah, no, they're.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the comments. Just really quickly, so in addition to the students that you're hoping to increase, when it comes to the general population of Oregon City and the surrounding Clackamas County area, what's the communications plan for trying to increase the attendance at your museum? Because if you just build a new exhibit, that doesn't automatically bring people in unless they know about it. So how are you going to go about making sure people are aware of this?
Well, we have been working with Mercy Corps. We received a grant, what's called a CBRA grant, and they've been giving us consultation to build a stakeholder strategy. And part of that stakeholder register is to come up with improved messaging. And so Mercy Corps has been instrumental this whole year with helping us to create a framework for reaching out to the community as well as building relationships, which is a lot of what I do, is trying to get out there and bring in teachers and go to school districts and talk about the programs that we have to offer. So part of the communication plan will be, we've have our stakeholders and we have different messages for each of the stakeholders. That will be the communications plan, is implementing how we're going to reach them and what is the best way.
Excellent, thank you.
So one of your stakeholder groups has to be City of Oregon City residents. Since the Metro Enhancement money, we want primarily be benefiting our residents. I'm happy about Clackamas County's museum and attracting all these people. So how do you plan to keep track of the residents who are in Oregon City so that when you come back at another future date, you're going to be able to tell us in numbers how many people from our community you attracted? And I'm assuming you know that because that's part of what the Metro Enhancement Grant is for.
Yes, we keep track of all visitors that come through our doors. We ask them where they're from and how they heard about us. We take demographics. We have a whole visitor survey that we've been implementing, and this will become part of our annual report that we will be publishing pretty soon, since the year is almost over.
And then how will that be implemented into your closeout report for this particular grant?
We can implement the numbers, and that will come later. We would have to implement those numbers once the project is installed. We would track that data after the completion of the project.
Perfect. Please make sure that's in that.
We will. We're big at tracking data.
Good.
Because in marketing, that's really how you can get a return on investment. We tried to reach out through the things to see and do an Oregon City brochure, but the reality is we're not getting a return on investment in that brochure, so we're not going to invest dollars in that. What we're finding is a lot of people find out about us through a couple of main ways. They Google us or they drive by, and then of course we hear the words, well, I didn't know this existed, and I've lived here my whole life, and we're really trying.
$1 for every time you heard that. You would need to be applying for grants.
I would need to do fundraising. I could be the history guy, but no, I have to fundraise. You're right, Denise.
So are you going to be looking at a specific marketing strategy to try to get more Oregon City residents?
Yes, we are.
I would definitely include that in my report as well.
Okay.
Questions? Michael?
You asked for a 6-month extension?
Yes.
Okay, just wondering how the committee feels, because as a practical matter, we won't meet for another year. Should something go sideways and you needed a couple extra months, we wouldn't, unless we called a special meeting, we wouldn't have a way to
We
react.
can do that.
Or should we just make it a year?
Wasn't their request.
I understand. I'm just trying to be practical. And I'm wondering what the committee members think.
Marie?
I'd be in favor of a special meeting if needed.
I would be fine with that, but also, I mean, I think the 6 months is fine as well. Just kind of leaving it with that amount of time and hoping that they feel that that's an adequate amount of time to complete what they need to do.
Any thoughts?
My hope is that we would be able to gauge well ahead of next cycle, how project completion went.
Right. And they're checking in with staff on a fairly regular basis, so that's comfortable. Judy?
I'm actually okay with it taking up to a year, especially if we have staff checking in on the progress and making sure that there's no oopses. Because sometimes in life, things happen and projects do get delayed.
Yeah, they'll let her know. Rocky?
I could support either way, 6 months or a
Adam?
year.
Yeah, I'm fine either way.
Well, it's split, so I guess I'll say that if they,
Mayor, if I could, this is over here.
Yes.
If staff could, the request was for 6 months.
Yes.
And we've had these types of requests before in the past. And in the past, we hadn't had any problem. So what I would recommend, if you so desire, is that allow staff to monitor the situation, work with the applicant to make sure it's 6 months. And if it's not 6 months, then we'll send a letter or a memorandum to the full committee recommending one way or the other, a special committee or denial, because you don't know, the denial could be something totally their fault. And if it's their fault, it should be denied.
I think that's very reasonable, and if the committee is okay with that, let's go with the staff recommendation. I think that's what we've been able to do in the past. So, is there a motion to approve their extension request?
I'll move to approve. Oh, somebody else did. Rocky's got it. That's okay.
Okay, I'll just take Rocky for the motion, and I'll take you for the second. So, moved by Committee Member Smith and seconded by Committee Member Mitchell. So, all those in favor of the extension, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, looks like it's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. And next request.
Our next extension request is from the Oregon City Arts Commission.
All right. Thank you so much for being here.
Good evening, Trieste Andrews from the Oregon City Art Commission.
And Josh Plin from the Oregon City Arts Commission.
Thank you for the opportunity to ask for an extension for a request last year. Our request last year was twofold. The first part of it was to send out an RFP for someone to do a study on all of the art in Oregon City. We used a list from Public Works. We did hire Kathy Rowe, who did respond to the RFP. She created a 77-page report complete with pictures, descriptions, the condition that the art was in, and approximate cost to either replace or refurbish. That was completed, it was given to the city, and I think it's also hopefully given to Public Works. And that was a portion of our grant, which I think was, if I'm not mistaken, was $3,000 for that portion. The next portion was for what was ever on the priority list, was to complete that project. What it was a sculpture on the corner of 7th and Center Street that had been destroyed by a car accident and had to be replaced. We sent out an RFP, and we were so delighted. By March, we received 18 applications from sculptors. We were just incredibly happy with that. In March, we reviewed all 18. We brought that down to 4. At that point, we gave it to the McLaughlin neighborhood for their input where the statue was. And we realized at that time that the McLaughlin neighborhood really wanted to be more involved and have more input, and we were more than happy to do that for them. So in our April meeting, where we would have made the final selection, we invited the McLaughlin neighborhood in. They gave us some input. And at that point, we brought that down to 2 artists, both from Oregon City. In May, with input also from the McLaughlin neighborhood residents, we decided at that meeting to go with Jenny Ellsworth, who's a very well-known, successful metal artist right out of Oregon City. Because of those delays, we delayed the project. The artist is more than comfortable with 3 to 6 months to complete the sculpture and have it installed. So we are asking for an extension at this time. Any questions?
No, just for the record, both of the artists have Oregon City mailing addresses. They are not actual residents of Oregon City.
But Jenny Ellsworth was.
Motor Road, that portion of it is not in the city.
Oh, so it's like right out the bounds?
We're just right nearby.
All right.
So they're in the Oregon City mailing area.
Yeah, they're in the mailing area, okay. As myself, so.
Any questions?
I'll move to approve the staff recommended extension.
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Earl Smith, all those in favor of the extension? Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we, one of the things we talked about last year is that, what amount of time did we give them to do their presentation? Because, you know, we don't have all night.
Right, for the extensions, we said up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's
And for
fine.
the new proposals, up to 3 minutes. And I'm ready, 30 seconds.
Okay, we don't have the clock out here, the little box that gives the countdown.
That's true, I'm just using my clock
Okay,
here.
all right. So everybody be mindful, and, you know, if you go over a little bit, I'm not gonna, you know, cut you off, but we have,
Staff will let you know when you have 1 minute left and when you have
you are
30
aware,
seconds
we
left.
have 12 wonderful proposals to hear, and we want to make sure everybody gets a fair amount of time and make sure that we are able to understand everything that everybody is asking for. So we will start with Kanema Historic Cemetery Association. That would be Dennis Anderson and crew. Oh, just Dennis, okay. And that's okay, and we're moving right into that.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Good evening. Is this working? Okay, I'm Dennis Anderson. Some of you I know very well. And for those who don't know, I'm a resident of Kanema, and I'm also a member of the Kanema Historic Cemetery Association. And what I hope I can get through this really quick. I made some notes. This is kind of a new thing for me to be out here. The primary urgency in pursuing this enhancement grant would be for the preservation, restoration, and the maintenance of the Kanema Historic Cemetery. What you're looking at in my form here is like a revitalized cemetery board, and we've initiated an action plan significant to improve and to better organize the efforts of our volunteer neighbors. This grant, I believe, merits some of the listed goals. And along with that, rehabilitation and the maintenance of the cemetery. We have an urgent need to have an on-site cargo box, container, something that could be secure, protected from the environment and the rain, and to house and make accessible to all the neighbors who volunteer on a regular annual basis to keep the cemetery to be shipshape. What I wanted to discuss is that to improve the public benefit and to enhance the culture aspects of the Pioneer Cemetery, it is our goal to promote the greater awareness of the cemetery. It is an isolated, off-track, kind of like removed from the neighborhood proper, like a half a mile inland. We share with the metro property as such, but there's an easement and a roadway to that cemetery. It's about a 1.9 acre plot.
Minute remaining.
Oh, wow, my God, okay. My biggest pitch would be the Historic Cemetery is a biography of what makes and constitutes the beginnings of Kanema, the neighborhood, and also Oregon City. It is rich with history. It's to honor the markers and the headstones of the pioneers, families who are resident there. We have the names that seem to be so much a part of Oregon City, and there is a list. I know I have 1 minute, and I want to wrap it up.
Go ahead.
Sorry, this is quite a pressure. Anyway, the culture, we believe it's a cultural resource. This 19th century cemetery is in great need of help and assistance, and anything that you can see your way clear to help us in that regard would be very beneficial. We have a very active group, a very committed group within our neighborhood, and I think we could probably improve the lot of that cemetery going forward. Any questions?
Are there questions? Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I did have a question. So you mentioned that the storage unit would be used to house materials, it'd be secured, but it would still be accessible to volunteers.
Yes.
So is there going to be a specific time or way that they access that storage container?
To date, usually it has to be you notify somebody who has in the past a principal key. Now that's a combination lock. One of the proactive things that we want to take on is like to make it more accessible to the public. To do that, we would probably have, and to promote a more working list that people can be able to notify and allow them to have time to get up there and get them into the cemetery proper. As it is now, it is locked, except for the 2 times in a given year, Memorial Day weekend and like 4th of July, it generally is locked.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
So we were provided with a map today, and on that map, it looked like it's inside the city limits. When I looked online earlier today, it looks like it's outside the city limits.
It is.
Yeah.
It's outside?
Yes.
Part of it is in and part of it is out.
Parts in, parts out?
Yes.
Okay.
It's an interesting isolated cemetery.
My concern, setting aside the fact that I think shipping containers are ugly, they're not allowed as storage containers in the city limits of Oregon City. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
You'll need to put it in the county part.
Or purchase a wood storage building, which can be obtained for the same amount of money, really, as a container. And I'm really having a problem with putting a shipping container in a historic cemetery.
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
The consensus of our group, the board, was to what do we do to better able people to have access, to put work crews together to go in there and to, refurbish some of the headstones, probably replace and restore some of those that have been fallen. And we need a storage container. A steel cargo box investigated by our board in terms of like a one-time use cargo box is not an ugly thing. It has to work. The doors have to close. It is a way to secure any kind of equipment that we would have or acquire and would be readily available to those people who would come in and help us with our efforts. Anything else would be subject to like maybe vandalism and that like. And what we want is to have a place, a central place to house all the stuff necessary to upkeep and maintain the cemetery. The fact that it's a steel cargo box, the kind that you're kind of referring to, is we don't want that either. In our investigation and research is that it is suggested that one, and rather than buying a new one or going on Craigslist and finding whatever is available, a one-time use container generally is a workable unit. It's clean, it's workable and neat, and would probably satisfy all our requirements. And while it may not be preferred to be in the city limits, we're on that sort of like crazy place of being removed and away from Kenema proper. So we need something that we could feel safe and secure with equipment that we would put into it, and it not subject to like damage or vandalism that might occur in the course of a wood thing. Also, the fact of like getting a wood shed, yes, would be less expensive, but the deterioration and the maintenance of that would be, we're thinking long-term, and we're thinking of like what would be the best for the nature of our enterprise.
We get that, but you still have to meet the land use requirements. As Mike has pointed out aptly, that you can't just take and put a steel building or any sort of a container like that. So I'm assuming that you probably did not check in with the community development department about this particular box.
No, I
Yeah.
didn't.
It's something we always suggest, is if you think you're going to be putting something somewhere, check with plan, because you may not be able to do it. That's what Mike is pointing out.
No allowances for those things?
No,
Well-
there's really no exception for it, particularly
The concern is especially.
it's a historic district.
And when we're spending public funds, if we won't require that we wouldn't allow that for a private citizen to do it, so we
Stop for
can't.
just a second. Yep.
New dimension. You're going to scare me away.
Hang on for a second.
like Halloween.
Yeah, that was freaky.
I've never heard that.
Yeah. We just have to be sure that we follow our own rules when we're spending public money. I think it's something that can be, that can be overcome. And I don't think it, I mean, it doesn't turn me against the product, the project. Whatever can be worked out for a storage container.
I think if we approve this, we will have to put a condition on it that it is subject to the city's land use and planning requirements. I think the other thing that, I'll be asking this question frequently, so if you're out there and you haven't come up yet, so I understand generally how the community will benefit from your project. So again, we're spending City of Oregon city dollars that were given to us. So how are you planning to do more outreach to residents here so that they are more involved, and you can give us some statistics and information about who's volunteering and how this benefits, or, I'm a fan of the
Names.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the cemetery. The late community development director, Kathy Galbraith, was a big supporter of it. As a matter of fact, I believe in her last will and testament, she gave some funds some years ago to the Kanema Cemetery Association. That's how much she felt about it. So I am, I've been there many times, not particularly with you, but I've been there many times. So I'm aware of its significance and the fact that we had, let's just say, some uncaring people go in and do some damage, which was, many cemeteries were hit that particular weekend as well. And it's just unfortunate that they were able to somehow get in. So that's, I'm trying to help you make the connection between the grant funds that could be given and the benefit not only to the broader Oregon City community, but how we get more people involved who live here.
Well, there would be a necessary promotion of its existence. Trail news would be one. The fact that, like, we have an annual kind of Memorial Day weekend, and we set it right as best we can. It's that annual kind of event to go in there and mow it and clean it up and prepare it for the guests that come through. So the outreach would be, I guess, through publicizing it, promoting it through sources like the Trail News or the website that we have here. The community itself is pretty much aware of it. We have an association, the Kanema Association, that we announce it. That's where we have and acquire the volunteers, and they do a yeoman's work of mowing and cleaning and preparing. We wanted to move it along into a next phase of actually doing some good things to restore the fallen headstones, to recover some of the markers that seem to be, taken over by the elements. On occasion, annually, the branches and the trees all need to be trimmed, and this is our job. That announcement or that publication of those people reaching out, we're always, well, not always, in my short time of living there, this is now going on almost 11 years now, I'm always surprised at the amount of contact. Since I live on a street that sort of adjoins the access to the cemetery, that people will happen by if I'm out in my studio, and they'll seek how to get in. And so there's beyond the neighborhood proper, the Kanema Association, and the neighbors who are well aware of the commitment to preserving and maintaining.
Thank you,
We have
Dennis.
people in outreach from this that are trying to get in there, and this is, so the more we can promote it and publicize its existence, I think the greater the good will be and a benefit to people who care about their loved ones that may or may not be in there.
Well, think about how, if your grant is approved, you're going to submit that as part of your documentation.
Of course,
for the
of course,
future. So,
of course.
Okay. All right.
That's it.
Anything else, folks? Okay.
Clarification. So if it's in that the planning department or community development wasn't
We can't approve the shed
right, you can't approve the sheds.
if we can't.
Right, you can't. So therefore, if they said, if it's deemed inappropriate, now the request is for what he asked for.
Right.
So if he comes back and says he wants something, he's decided to put something.
alternative?
An alternative. That's not the initial request.
No, but I think that's a reasonable request to ask for an alternative.
That's what the committee has to
Yeah.
agree on.
Yes, we have to agree on that when, when we get down to the other part. It's just one of those things where there are certain things that are allowed in a National Register district, and even if this is just outside, it's still, that's something that, we have to take that into consideration. As Mike said, we can't be proving things that aren't allowed. So,
One question. Should I be so lucky as to garnish this grant, should I have to bring back to the board a recommendation on an alternative structure?
bring
for
that back to
storage?
staff, and they would get back in touch with the committee.
staff.
Yeah, we could probably do this over an email by looking at it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
All right, our next organization is the Clackamas County Arts Alliance.
Does Mr. Zook still have my papers?
I've got them right here.
Okay, because I have notes on them. He wanted them, and so, okay. If he doesn't need them now, I'll just take them now and I can look at my notes.
Hello, I'm
there.
Diane Alves with the Clackamas County Arts Alliance, and we're in Oregon City. Well, we're a little bit of everywhere, but
Well, your city of residence.
yes, exactly right.
Is your city of residence Oregon City?
I am not,
Okay, well,
no,
your
but
city of
Oregon
residence,
is,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, the organization is, so.
But you don't live there. You feel like you
I
probably
do
live
not.
there, but.
I do live here. A lot of the time I'm here. Thank you for hearing our request tonight. The mission of the Clackamas County Arts Alliance is to keep arts and culture central to Clackamas County. At the heart of our work is creative community artists and makers working in various mediums, actors, singers, writers, and everyone contributing to the vitality of the places where we work and live and play. We exist to champion a vibrant, creative, and inclusive way of life in both urban and rural communities. And tonight, I specifically want to talk to you about the work we're doing in Oregon City. This project takes the lessons we learned from the past year, because if you remember, we were here last year with a pilot project. What we learned this last year and make some improvements to it and expand it, actually. The project supported Oregon City artists and makers and creative artists specifically by developing more opportunities for them to achieve and create cultural and entrepreneurial goals. This grant will expand on those opportunities for the public to view their work in a much larger way. It will further build upon our successful artist exhibit program, which we have currently. And currently, actually, we have 17 galleries throughout the county with most of them actually here in Oregon City. One at Beaver Creek Health Center, the Public Services Building and Development Services Building up at Red Soils, the new courthouse that's being built, Providence Willamette Medical Center, and until recently, I think this last week, the City Hall here had AEP artists in it. We're going to expand that program specifically into discovering new spaces and innovative venues where artists can show their work. What we're hearing more and more is that artists need more space. We have 18 galleries now.
40 seconds.
What?
You have 40 seconds.
Okay, oh gosh. Anyway, so we're looking to expand that. We're also looking to take what we've heard around specifically how important it is for artists and creatives around connection and collaboration. It's the number one thing we heard this year from local artists is that being an artist in this area can be very lonely and isolating because you're doing the work in your garage or if you are lucky enough to have a studio, but it's very isolating. And there's have been a lot of opportunities for artists to get together, share ideas, share where they're getting things printed, how things are changing online, how they used to be on Instagram to sell their art, and now they're having to move off of that platform because of the changes on Instagram, and lots of the other things that are happening. So this proposal is specifically to stop doing the back-to-back workshops. We used to do a 4-series workshop and move them to monthly gatherings and swapping out educational one month and then just a gathering the second month where artists can get together and talk about that.
Thank you.
Questions?
Questions?
Well, I have a question.
Yeah.
how do you connect with the artists? How do you find the artists and identify them and communicate with them?
Yeah, so that's really good because we learned another important thing this year, and that is Oregon City artists, for some reason, are really hard to get a hold of. We started doing our regular outreach like we do to artists, and people come from all over the county to something, but Oregon City artists are harder to get a hold of. So what we've started to do is outreach one-on-one, and we're doing that in a couple of different ways. We have a new community outreach person, and she's actually attending, like she goes to Three Rivers meetings. I think she's come to a commission meeting here, Arts Commission. And then we're going around now all summer, and either she's at an art fair or I am, and we're actually talking to individual artists and asking them, do you live in Oregon City? Are you an artist or maker or creative? And that's a whole new space we've come into, and actually one-on-one trying to recruit folks beyond the regular connections that we have with people. So we're doing a special effort in order to get those folks.
I noticed in your budget that you have allocated the $50,000 to personnel services, salaries, and administration. Could you say a little bit more about how exactly the funds will be used and for what positions?
Yeah, so specifically, it will be, and I didn't bring my budget with me, but specifically, I think the majority will be for us to get the place to have the meetings, gather meetings, do all those things around those maker and creative outreach efforts that we're doing, the monthly efforts. So there's a portion of either my time or the outreach person's time to coordinate those efforts. We also, if we have a speaker come, we only are working with local artists in that, and so we're asking local artists to do that, and we think local artists should be paid for their time, so we're also reimbursing them for their time with a stipend or something like that. But the majority of it is just that, the coordinated effort it takes to pull that off, and then also do all the outreach, because that's going to take a big portion of it too. The one-on-one outreach we're doing, including coming to, different, like I said, like Three Rivers Artist Guild, the Arts Commission meetings here, any other gatherings like that in the Oregon City region that we're actually attending to try to do more outreach and direct outreach to those artists.
I had a question. So what metrics are you using to kind of gauge the success of this grant project proposal? Is that increased artist or space or?
Yeah, specifically, we're looking at and we're tracking, again, this year we're going to track a couple of new things, the new number of new exhibits that we'll have so artists can exhibit there, the number of any kind of new partnerships we have, so with coffee houses or other businesses or banks or anything like that, we're tracking those. The participants that are coming to the training opportunities, we obviously ask anybody who comes, where do they live? What is their medium? We're tracking some of those. We're also doing, each time we get together for a training, not just the gathering ones, but the training ones, we're having surveys at each of those. Like, did this meet your expectations? Would you come to another one? What other things would you like to see? And we've started gathering quite a list now of the kinds of professional education things that artists are looking for. And so obviously we'll be looking for local professionals to fill those roles too. So if we have a professional workshop here, we'll be using professionals from Oregon City. So say a lot of artists right now are asking for sort of tax advice. Like I'm finally selling some of my products somewhere, selling candles now for the first time. What do I do with those taxes? Should I start tracking those? So if we did that workshop in Oregon City, we would ask an Oregon City tax person to come and do that presentation to them. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions? I had on the grant application, you listed other grants and support, but you didn't put any amounts. You have Clackamas County funding, and then you have Cultural Trust. You said applied, but it wasn't specific.
Right.
I would say.
We don't know yet. Yeah.
Well, how much did you apply for?
Well, that's an operating grant, and you don't ask for an amount, they do it based on your annual budget.
Okay.
So they give you an amount. And usually for us, it's about $7,000 to $8,000.
That would have been helpful to know. Bear in mind, so I'm not unsupportive of the things that you're trying to do. What I found lacking in your application was the very specificity about Oregon City.
Okay.
You talk in here about providing training opportunities for underserved groups. So how are you going to identify those underserved groups? How will Oregon City residents be, we have not seen your closeout report from last year. So that's something I would be asking for in the future, that when somebody applies for another grant, we want to see their closeout reports, because we're asking for metrics. We're asking for things that we want to know how this reached Oregon City folks. So that, again, you're talking about Clackamas County, but the specificity about Oregon City is kind of lacking in here. So I don't know any of that. You said you work with underrepresented artists and makers to increase their public profile. That sounds great. Discover new spaces. How are you going to identify those spaces? You know, how will this overall benefit? And so again, clarifying, just because they say they live in Oregon City doesn't mean they do live in Oregon City, as I pointed out with our wonderful artist that we're picking for the sculpture. She does live just outside, so it's close, but no, not quite close. So those are some of the things that I saw in your application that concerned me.
Okay. So when we have our closeout report, we'll have all that data, including how many Oregon City residents and all that stuff.
I'm going to be voting on it now.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So,
no.
but keep it brief, because James is giving me the eye over there.
No, well, I can just give you one of the numbers we pulled up recently, getting ready to do that, and that is annually, we have about 15% of our artists that participate in the artist exhibit program are from Oregon City. Now, that might not sound like that much, but we represent the whole county, and we do outreach to the whole county. So 15% is not, it's actually one of the higher things.
Of what number, though? 15% of 20, 15% of 100?
15% of this year, it was 67 applicants we had. So 15% of those folks were from Oregon City. Last year. This year, closer to 20% came from Oregon City, and I think that's just because of the additional outreach we did. One of the things that actually is in here that it talks a little bit about is the new art that we're doing and the call for artists that we're doing at the courthouse. And we, interestingly enough, when we did that call, we left it fairly open because we weren't sure what kind of artists could reply in time. And out of the 8 applicants, which was a small pool because it's specifically the kind of art we were looking for, 3 of them were from Oregon City. Now, the person that the committee chose is not an Oregon City artist, sadly. She's from Beaver Creek. But the other artists remained in the call and have been asked to come back into, without doing a separate call, come back in to now come into the next call, which will be for the elevator bays and things like that. So the important thing to us is, if we're in a space, that the artists from the space represent the space. And so we are focusing on that quite a bit and making sure that we're doing the outreach to get that.
Anything else? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Next is, as she's getting back, is the Clackamas County Workforce Partnership.
My name is Amanda Wall, and I work for Clackamas Workforce Partnership, Westland resident.
Perfect.
Okay. Today I'm here to celebrate the success of Clean Slate Clackamas. Expungement, the legal process of sealing or erasing criminal records, plays a critical role in reducing recidivism, supporting workforce development, and fostering economic growth while promoting overarching systemic change. With the support of this grant over the past year, 877 people were served at the Oregon City Clinic location, with 176 of those individuals currently living in Oregon City. Current data shows that of the 877 participants served in the last program year, 503 indicated they make less than $17 an hour. 15% of those individuals were Oregon City residents. With the same number of people asking for support in housing, employment, and job training, and education as their highest needs. It is our mission to assist individuals to move beyond the barriers of social and economic resulting from the incarceration and access to resources necessary for economic stability, living wage employment, and secure housing. According to the Western Center of Law and Poverty, formerly incarcerated people are more than 10 times likely to be homeless. Expungement support offers a second chance by removing the stigma of a criminal record, enabling these individuals to obtain stable housing, a critical factor in reducing recidivism. Justice-involved individuals are what we call the waiting workforce, a pool of talented and capable individuals who, due to their criminal record, face significant barriers to employment despite their readiness to work. While highly qualified and possessing a variety of skills and experiences, an entire population is often overlooked due to the stigma attached to their past. Clean Slate is not just about expungement. Our clinic also works to create system change by offering comprehensive support for marginalized communities. This includes tenants who have faced eviction, immigrants looking for DACA renewals, and access to legal aid to apply for driver's license reinstatement. All of these services lead to empowerment, community building, preventative care, and economic stability. Expungement is not merely a legal procedure. It is
You have
a
40
pathway
seconds.
for a more vibrant and hopeful future for individuals and communities alike. We measure success not just by the data from the people we serve, but the stories we are told, the tears that we are shed, and the pride that is celebrated. Support from the Oregon City Enhancement Grant is paramount to this work and allows us to provide all eligible individuals a second chance they deserve. Thank you.
Probably suggest for people coming up, you don't need to repeat everything in your report, but try to respond to.
I'm open to
criteria.
questions now.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, questions?
The numbers did shift a little bit since we applied.
No questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Greater Oregon City Watershed Council. Tom and staff.
Here you did, I actually can't find it. Is that all right?
No problem.
Okay.
We'll go.
All right, thank you so much.
Hi, greetings. I'm Tom Gaskill. I'm the Executive Director of the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council, and I'm pleased to be back here presenting a proposal for signage at Singer Creek Park and Abernathy Creek Park. But it will be presented tonight by Kira Smith, who is our part-time outreach and engagement coordinator. This is a new position for us, and I'm thrilled that Kira is on our team. So you want to take it away, Kara?
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much, everybody, and thank you for your time to hear our proposal. We are requesting $27,000 for the design, construction, and installation of interpretive signage, and that also includes a request for funding to do some augmented restoration work at Singer and Abernathy Creek Parks. Those have both been ongoing restoration sites for our council. For a number of years, we've been working with Oregon City Parks and Recreation to remove invasive species and install native vegetation, which is why we think that they would be good sites for interpretive signage to invite the community in to learn more about their watersheds, watershed health, and the work that is being done by the council and Oregon City Parks and Recreation to improve and protect rivers and streams. We are also requesting $4,500 for community engagement processes around the design of the signs. That includes funding, that includes a request for funding for stipends for youth from partner organizations within Oregon City that we have worked with in the past. That includes the Gay Straight Alliance from Oregon City High School. We've had a meeting recently with Parrot Creek Youth and Family Services who are interested in the project, and we've partnered often in the past few years with Rivers of Life. In addition to working with youth, we have reached out to neighborhood associations adjacent to both parks and have started conversations with them about design and consulting on the project and the signage as well. And the Illyville Neighborhood Association has offered to put together a committee, and we're going to be hosting not just youth workshops, but also larger community workshops where we can invite folks in to
30 seconds.
provide input, like photographs, poems, or drawings for the signs. And the remaining, I think there'll be, there's a request for the $14,000 for construction and installation, and they'll be constructed to specifications given to us by Oregon City Parks and Recreation. We've already been in conversation with them, and they are working actually on their own plan that they'll give to us. Thank you.
Any questions? You already mentioned it, that the city does have a template for what they want, and I've seen your other signs, and they're very similar. I'm sure that they're going to be wanting them to be similar in design and the size so that they match everything else, because they're working on changing out a lot of our signs, the old ones, so that they meet the new requirements. So thank you for doing that and checking with them ahead of time. I'm also happy to see in your grant proposal that you have a minimal amount for personnel, and I think that's important because I'd like to see something get out in the community for enhancement and not use a lot of it for staff. I think it's admirable that we're able to focus in on Singer Creek and Abernathy Creek. Those are two watershed areas and creeks in the city that I think Singer Creek Park is a lot more known, but a lot of people don't know about the little park we have in Abernathy near your office. So I think your outreach program will be a good way to solicit input. Again, you, as already mentioned here, Trail News is another way to get things out, to let people know in our community that they can go there and see it. Other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much
Thank you
for your
very
time.
much. Yeah, appreciate your time.
Okay, Hannah Grace family. Just name and city of residence for the record.
Jason Hood with Hannah Grace family and an Oregon City resident, and Hannah Grace is in Oregon City also.
Scott Eagles, Oregon City resident, sixth grade teacher, Gardner Middle School.
Hannah Grace family is a nonprofit here in Oregon City. Our music program is called Ascend Music. Everything we do is of no cost to the families and kids that we work with. We're entering our fourth year of the music program, which is a completely scholarship guitar and keyboard program. We check out instruments, brand new instruments to kids, and they're used as take-home instruments to practice on. If they complete the first year of the program, that instrument is gifted to them and becomes their possession. All of our students that are accepted into the program come from different backgrounds of instability and hardship, such as domestic violence, depression, being trafficked, autism spectrum, ADHD, being foster kids, coming from different traumas like death of a parent. Our program is designed to be therapeutic, where we say with our instructors and with our volunteers that building these kids up is the most important thing to do. We like being a music program and making the music important. But for many of them, they come from just this feeling of, I can't succeed at anything. So music affords to us this ability to incrementally have these baby steps of success with these kids that have not felt like a success sometimes ever in their life, and sometimes feel like things that are not their fault whatsoever, it's somehow their responsibility. So it allows us to build them up with these little baby steps of success. And these kids that are looking at the ground all the time, all of a sudden months later are making eye contact, and all of a sudden are doing other things in life that they just couldn't before. The need in our community is much greater than what we're touching right now. We're working with kids that are have gone through the hardest stuff, often in life that they could, and often have no real support system. And so we're trying to be really a family to them. And it's what we do is made possible because we have a growing number of community members that are monthly donors, growing number of kind of an unintended consequences. We have a lot of volunteers that come from the community, often retired people that want to give back, need someone to love on, and in return to be loved also. And thanks to City of Oregon, City of Metro Enhancement Grant, as going into our fourth year, we've been the recipient 2 years
Thank you.
of this grant. Thank you.
Questions? I'm the only one that has all the questions. Okay. Again, I appreciate your giving us the overview. It's already here. We already read this. What I'm interested in knowing is the impact of your program on Oregon City residents. I didn't see anything in your application which told me how many people you served in the past, how many you anticipate serving. You've got some very general numbers in here. It says, please, describe the measurements you will use to assess the program's effectiveness. It doesn't give me any indication of how you're serving students in our Oregon City area. Now, maybe you put that in your closeout report from last year, but I don't have that.
Well, I think in there, it talks about 29 existing students with a desire with the grant of being able to expand to 40 students.
Is that 29? It doesn't, it just says 29 combined students. So those are 29
Between guitar and
Oregon
keyboard.
City resident students?
I think we have 4 presently that aren't Oregon City residents. To begin with, we didn't just accept Oregon City residents, but part of working with people that are often low income. So we've got one low-income family that has since moved from Oregon City to Sherwood.
Yes, we
They're
get
still
that.
allowed to be in the program.
Sure.
They had 2 students.
Sure.
One guitar, one keyboard. They can only afford to drive back and forth 1 day a week, so one student dropped out. Same thing with another single mom that was in low-cost housing, Oregon City, got changed to Milwaukee. She's only able to,
And that's okay.
to come once. So we've kind of, for the health of the program, tried to now, the chance of someone moving into Oregon City isn't very good. There's a good chance of them moving out when they're going through these types of instabilities. So almost all of the kids that we're accepting now are Oregon City, with the recognition that if we basically only lose kids from the program because they move away and taking public transportation and taking an hour or 2 to get here
I
is
totally
a hard
understand
thing.
that. that would have been nice for you to explain that, saying that they started out in Oregon City, but they've moved and we still want to keep them in the program. This is how it works, et cetera, et cetera. Because again, we are, particularly those 4 of us, we're accountable to the public. And we want to make sure that they understand that we are using our dollars, effectively to help folks. And we just want to make sure we can answer those questions when we get asked, like, well, are they serving Oregon City residents? And I have to say, I don't know. So I'm just trying to help people.
So presently, I think we're over 85% of enrollment from Oregon City, and the others were previously of Oregon City and have moved, and a couple of them still continuing. If they complete the first year of the program, they can continue to keep coming back.
Okay, perfect.
And that is something we can include in our enhancement grant agreement, as we've done in the past. We've asked people, when they give us their quarterly reports, that they tell us how many are residents, non-residents, and that can be part of the enhancement grant agreement.
Yeah, and it says here, proposal information. If you answered yes, that you had one before, please describe the grant project for which you received the funding. That would have been a great spot to put that in there, who you served briefly, again. So, appreciate it. Appreciate all your work. Thank you so much. Oregon City Together, Oregon City School District. Our favorite school district, right?
And I believe I have a presentation from you guys.
You do? I mean, it's, I'll be kind of just talking quickly because it's a long presentation.
Do you want me to bring it up, or you're good without it?
I think I'll be okay without it.
Okay, they described everything in here.
Yeah. Hi, my name's Ann Haynes. I live in Lake Oswego, but I'm the coalition coordinator for Oregon City Together.
My name's Heidi Blackwell. I'm a resident of Oregon City. I'm a parent to 2 sons, which is how I'm connected to Oregon City Together, and I'm also a member of the Oregon City School District Board.
Thank you very much. And we also have a couple of other folks back here celebrating us tonight and supporting us too, Brian and Shelley.
And Mr. Shaw, thank you, sir.
So thank you for considering us for this grant again this year. This will be our 2nd year for enhancement grant if we are granted this award. We're asking for $13,500 to continue our work with prevention, education, and awareness around fentanyl and other drugs as a measure of safety for our community. Just a little bit about Oregon City Together, in case some people don't know. We are a substance abuse prevention coalition made up of community members like Heidi, and our mission is to envision healthy drug-free futures for all youth in Oregon City. So we do all of our work in Oregon City. So we do know that fentanyl is an ongoing issue for Oregon City based on the information we get from our partners with OCPD. And we've seen overdoses as young as 9 months old in this area. It's in the city in both pill and powder form. And luckily, some of the overdoses are down, deaths because of Narcan, thank goodness, right? So we know it's still an issue. We also know, based on some numbers from Clackamas County Public Health, that Oregon City ranks second in the number of overdose-related 911 calls in Clackamas County. So it is definitely something that we need to continue to give plenty of prevention, education, and awareness towards. So there is a presentation I sent to Ann, and there's a little recap, but what our grant is a multi-pronged approach to reach the students in the schools, to reach community and parents with resources and information through social media, email blasts, billboard. I don't know if you guys have seen our billboard downtown, and also our community forum with our partners, OCPD and Michelle Stroh, who lost her son to a fentanyl poisoning. So we still have all of those partnerships in line for this coming year, and we did school assemblies at the 2 middle schools and the high school. So we reached at least 1,800 students in Oregon City with those assemblies. And then we also worked with some kids from the communications intern group at the high school.
Thank you, time's up.
Time is up.
Yeah, I'm
Well,
glad.
thank you for your consideration. Questions? I knew I was going to go too
Again,
long.
you don't have to repeat everything you had in the application. 'Cause
Okay.
we supposedly had read it.
Good.
Questions? Hey, you didn't mention anything under number 12 about other grants you've applied for, and obviously, since some of us are on the opiate settlement grant committee that hasn't
Yes.
been awarded yet, I was kind of surprised it wasn't listed.
It should have been.
You
Well,
had
that's
a
used
drop-
for a different program,
You had
actually.
a
the
drop, I know,
opioid
but
awareness.
it's kind of similar. So I was just wondering if that was.
Oh, I see what
if
you
some
mean,
of
yeah.
that was kind of part of it.
Right, so this is a totally different project because that's based on mental health promotion. So I think that's why we didn't mention it. But we have applied for the opioid settlement dollars through the city also.
Appreciate your listing some numbers of students presented to and served.
Thank you, Mayor. So I know the school district is the arm by which you guys are able to accomplish your work, and I really appreciate that. Does the district provide, beyond in-kind, do they provide financial support as well?
Not for this particular grant, just
But
in
to
kind.
Oregon City Together in general?
Oh, in general, no, they're our fiscal agent. So they handle all of our financial.
Right.
They process the money, right?
Promoting activities, providing
Right.
space and access to students, that would be what the partnership looks like with the school.
Right, the in-kind, okay, thank you.
But they're, yeah.
Was that called out at all? I'm looking at the in-kind chart here.
We included it in the in-kind, yes.
Facilities, yeah, events, facilities. Okay.
Sure how relevant this is to the grant decision, but I'm curious how you determine your success, because it's a broad problem that seems to be increasing in a lot of ways, and it's multi-pronged, as you said. So, and maybe maybe a better question might be how you determine what kind of an approach you're going to take towards education and prevention.
Right, that's a great question. So some of the measurements that we use are based on a parent survey, because what we want to do is not only educate parents about what's going on, but also get them to take an action to talk to their children about it. And we actually ask that question, and 68% of parents said that they had spoken to their children about it. So we want to increase that number in the next survey. So that's one way we do it. The other way is literally just sheer numbers on people who get exposed to the message. It's, such a sort of still a new issue. So there's, it's not new, but relatively new compared to, say, tobacco, right, prevention. So there's not a lot of research to compare it to as far as, but, OD number deaths or ER visits, things like that are certainly things that we can look at, but it's with this amount of money, it's a small awareness campaign. So we really kind of rely on the numbers of people that get exposed to it mostly. Yeah.
And for example, with the students, we asked them what they thought would be important, what would make an impact on other students. And so they really informed that social media campaign, the forum at the different schools, and how they thought they could get that message out. So that was all led by the students.
A follow-up question to the campaign that you mentioned. You mentioned doing some social media outreach. Are you using specific platforms or targeting specific audiences for Oregon City in that, or are you kind of putting it out more as a broader campaign?
Specifically Oregon City. And on the campaign that the youth created, we targeted specifically youth because it was really very much written for them and created for them. The kids created a documentary and several versions of it, and then they created a couple of social media posts that we used, and specifically Oregon City youth were targeted on social.
And to follow up on that, how are you measuring kind of impressions from Oregon City residences versus kind of any other residences and on the social media?
So we can look at the campaign and see, so I targeted just Oregon City residents, but obviously if somebody in Oregon City shared it, then I can't necessarily tell you where they live. I can look at the back end of the campaign and see age groups and demographics and where they live generally. I don't think I can focus it down that specifically. Yeah. But when when we purchased the media with this campaign, I specifically targeted Oregon City youth for those campaigns and then parents for the ones that we were trying to reach parents with.
Okay. So are you using like a bot or an SEO booster to kind of get your targeted audiences?
Oh, pardon me? I'm using Meta and boosting and using demographic targeting.
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Again, the school district sends that out to their email lists and through their social media as well.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Our friends at the Oregon City Arts Commission. Forgive me for fidgeting.
We
The
are
air is
again?
blowing right on me.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. For the record, Trieste Andrews from the Oregon City Art Commission.
And Josh Planton from the Oregon City Arts Commission and Oregon City resident. Given the advice, I'm going to make this really short and sweet. Addressing the comments that came back from staff on our application, there was concern that there could be a conflict of interest in part of our project, which was to enhance the Joseph Meek mural located downtown. We feel as an Arts Commission that conflict of interest does not exist. One point being that the Oregon City Arts Commission has been following the guidelines and policies that were approved back in 2001 that were reenacted when we were reformed in 2021. We also feel that given the limited ability for us to judge any murals based on the content under Oregon First Amendment laws, and only making sure that we're following the procedure in terms of applications, agreements, and the proper materials used for the mural, that basing any other decision on content wouldn't necessarily be a factor. In this case, we're not aware of any other projects in that same location that would interfere or cause us to have a conflict of interest in choosing one project over the other. And finally, I think that, to make it easy and agreeable, if there was such a conflict determined by Oregon City Legal Counsel, we are happy to pass that decision off to the City Commission to decide. So I'll stop there and see if there's questions.
Is everybody familiar with the mural that's on the side of the Elks Temple? So they're asking to extend that with the same sort of genre. So that was approved originally by the Arts Commission at the time and was very well received. Are there any questions regarding their application?
I have a question.
Yes.
What is your organization's relationship to the building? As in, like, do you own the building? Are you a tenant?
No, the building owner is the Elks Lodge, and we have worked with them. You'll see a letter of recommendation from them in our application. We are a regulatory body, part of the City of Oregon City, so we have no formal relationship with that group. So we're planning to work with them, other Oregon City organizations, and actually survey broader community members and community individuals as part of the project overall process.
So it's a privately owned building, not a public building, is that correct?
Correct. As part of the process to do any kind of mural in Oregon City, though, there is an agreement signed that I believe it's 5 years guaranteed that mural would be available, and that they would have to sign off on that as building owner before we would be able to approve the mural as part of our process.
And to be clear, my mind is totally not made up about this, but maybe just something for the committee to consider is the use of public funds for what could be considered an upgrade to a privately owned building.
All the murals we have right now in Oregon City are all on privately owned buildings.
So it's not like on a library or city hall or, yeah.
All the ones we have are on privately owned
There's
buildings.
no conflict.
No.
There. Okay.
I did attend their board meeting, I think it was either in April or May, to present this to them for the possibility of going to the grant. They were very excited and very supportive of it.
Thank you.
The whole purpose of the mural program is to put them out on buildings, not necessarily publicly owned ones. So there's many, the Friends of the Oregon City Library have one on the Tarleton building. There is one on the old Oregon City Antique Mall building, which is right across the street. And if you look out the door, you can see that. So yeah, that's how they've all done. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that.
So I recall during our last budget cycle, for those of us who were on the city commission, one of my concerns when we were going through with funding for the Arts Commission was that I felt like I didn't see enough focused on restoration of the existing pieces that we have. And so I'm glad to see this application coming through. With that being said, if you could refresh my mind on what you would say the bulk objects are in your existing budget. I know that there is the consultant that you just recently told us about earlier, as well as the arts grants. Are there any other line items that I may be missing?
As far as funding for that?
That the city budget is used for?
Yeah. And I hope I'm answering it correctly, but what we have looked at on our budget, we want to, as last year, hang on to $40,000 to give out as public funding for art projects. And our first time out of the gate, we had 2 or 3 weeks to put that together. We had just like this. We had 40,000 given away to artists and had the Porch Fest. We had, I think there were 5 different events, international through Soul Flags, and we wanted to be able to do that again next year. What we've also, this grant would also go for, as we said, that study that we just completed, the mosaic bench that is on 7th Street is in such bad condition that it's unsafe at this point. That's the first one that we want to go after with this grant. If you remember, we asked for, and Josh came with me also, when we went to the budget meeting, we asked for $100,000 for the biennium. What we were given was $40,000 with a $20,000 special project. So we already have, $100,000 that we would like to do. So what we've been doing is going to the Metro Enhancement Grant in order to make up for that deficit, hoping that that when we go again to budget, we'll be able to show this is what we've done, this is what we need. Because I don't think the commissioners were as comfortable as what we had accomplished at that point, although we had accomplished a lot. So we're just, trying to make a difference in Oregon City. So much of the art is in such bad condition that rather than being a value to Oregon City, it's becoming an eyesore, and that's just something we would like to change.
Right, and I appreciate that. And part of your last statement is exactly why I felt that there should have been more of an emphasis on restoration rather than new. But it sounds as though that the existing budget that the city gives, minus any sort of grants or anything, is mostly focused on new.
Right.
New. So, but I appreciate the narrative, and that's all that I have. Thank you.
Yeah, just to paraphrase it, you said, so I went and looked at it close up. So the Meek mural does need work.
Yes.
And you'll be doing that as part of the extension. I mean, not you personally, but the grant will pay for extension of that to add to it, but also restore the existing portion, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the reason we chose that one is in the study, that building and that wall is in the best condition for a mural. Some of the murals are so deteriorated that the walls also need work, but that was the best one to start with after a meeting with Kathy Rowe and after a presentation on the condition of the art in Oregon City. So we were excited about that possibility for that building.
So our paperwork now shows a grant request of $8,000, but before I just want to make sure I'm clear, before the conflict or potential conflict, possible conflict was brought up, your original request was for 28,000, right?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
8,000 for mostly cleaning from the study we did, focusing on that mosaic bench, and then 20,000 for restoration and an extension on the current Joseph Meek mural.
Okay, thank you.
Well, when the neighborhood was doing the cleanup last month, we did look at the bench. People in our group did sit on it, so it wasn't falling over. It's just a lot of the tile has come off. And
Don't wear shorts.
Yeah, so nobody was wearing shorts, and not at all, because their legs would have been scratched up. So,
Mayor, with your indulgence.
one more thing.
Go ahead.
So I guess I'll just say for the record, I don't see that there is a conflict regarding the mural. If it's going to be extended, I have every confidence that the Arts Commission is going to be looking at it from the standpoint of how does it fit in the proposed new extension, how does it fit in with the story of Joseph Meek, and from your documentation, it's going to present some more of our illustrious citizens, or maybe not so illustrious citizens, and extend sort of that story. So I'm not really sure where there's a conflict. We have not heard from our city attorney, but should there be some determination, then I, as a city commissioner, I don't see that we would have a problem taking a look at it, but I don't see that there's a conflict.
I think Mr. Graham wants to
Yes, I know he does.
Okay.
Mayor, the staff has determined that it actually is a conflict of interest. While the Arts Commission was commissioned to support the arts, ordinance number 211011 establishes the Arts Commission, which we're all happy about, to regulate murals. Now, they are asking for money to actually pay for the development, or actually pay for the restoration of a mural that they will have to also regulate. And so it doesn't really matter what criteria they go through, how they do it. The ordinance, which is the law of the city, establishes the Arts Commission to regulate murals. Now, other things that are not associated with the mural, that's fine. But the law states clearly that this organization is put together to regulate murals. And so that's where we see the conflict.
Well, they're going to be looking at the design, so that's part of their responsibility.
Right, but paying for it also.
Well, the city's paying for it.
Yeah, but it's a conflict. I mean, it is clear. I mean, the fact remains, this is an ordinance.
Sure, I would request that cities seek guidance from the Oregon Ethics Commission, since they have defined what a conflict of interest is under state law. I would hope that just being a regulatory body doesn't exclude somebody from participating in that environment, since Metro is both a regulator of garbage and trash and also active in collecting garbage and trash at Metro South. You can wear two hats at the same time.
Yeah, I think we can ask our city attorney he just sent me a whole big thing on the ethics thing, so I just read it about an hour ago. Go ahead.
I really appreciate Councilor Lewis's suggestion there and would support that. And I'd also just say, as an example, we as a city, as a public body, as a regulatory body, we regulate things like our roads and our streets. We also receive grants to improve our streets, and so I don't really see how that is different. I know that we're undertaking a big project right now on Holcomb with the Safe Routes to School, as the entity that is making sure that it's up to code. We're also the entity that's receiving the money to do that. So, but I think that getting that guidance from the OGEC would be helpful.
Yeah. We'll did you ask Bill to make a finding on this?
Not yet. We hadn't had an opportunity, but we will.
Okay, so we will ask our city attorney to give us his opinion about that. Anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Oregon City Farmers Market. Jess and Jackie, are you both coming up, or Jackie's here for the other one? Nope, Jackie's not coming up for that, but Jess is. Well, she is and she isn't.
Done.
She'll always be associated with it.
Oh, good evening. My name is Jessica Land, and I am an Oregon City resident, and I'm here tonight as the director of Oregon City Farmers Market. As a reminder, we're a 501c3 nonprofit. We're a year-round farmers market, been in operation since 2005. On average, we see approximately 1,500 plus customers that come through the market weekly, and average about 65 vendors per market, with the majority of our farms traveling less than 15 miles, so we're considered more of a hyper-local market. And our move to Clackamas Community College this past winter has allowed us to broaden our demographic, our community reach, and engage a larger audience, including Oregon City College students, 40% of which are food insecure. And as we see food expenses increase and food insecurity threatening households, the role of SNAP benefits at our market continue to increase. Thanks to the Metro grant, you've allowed us to match an additional $10 in SNAP funds to increase the buying power of EBT approved for verified Oregon City residents. Not only has this been benefiting our local residents, it's working as an additional source of revenue for our small farms. As an example, October 2023 till May 2024, we've served approximately 700 Oregon City residents, all of which we verify by taking their address each market week, and then we put it into a spreadsheet that we can use as our reporting and our matrix for determining growth. And we certainly would welcome the opportunity to continue offering this vital resource. We were granted funds last year, so this would be our last year before taking a break. So it would be a wonderful opportunity. And of course, we would include our final numbers, our percent of increase in our closeout report. And we thank you for considering us for one more year.
Are there any questions? Yes, Christine.
You mentioned your 700 Oregon City SNAP recipients, and I'm assuming those are 700 unique individuals.
They are.
How many of them come every week versus more periodically? Or
I would say the majority come each week. We average new customers each market week, but the majority are return ones as well. So, yeah.
700 times however many months you're in is a lot.
How many weeks in a year?
I noticed on your proposal that question number 5 was left unanswered. So I'm afraid in scoring your proposal, you took a little hit on points there. I wonder if maybe we can, since we have you here with us, if we could give you an opportunity to answer that question now. Question number 5 says, describe how the proposed project will meet the selected goals. And the goals you selected were increase employment or economic opportunities for city residents, and provide work, training opportunities, and other benefits for youth, seniors, and low-income people or other underserved groups.
Sure. I think I just overlooked question 5, so I apologize. But in terms of increasing employment or economic opportunities for city residents, economically, definitely allowing Oregon City residents who are reliant on SNAP benefits for food sustenance does increase their opportunity to have a larger buying power at our market. It also can help benefit our local farms as well from that additional source of revenue, who the majority of our farms are in Oregon City, by the way. In terms of providing benefits to youth, seniors, low income, all of those in terms of increased food access with senior farm direct nutrition and WIC recipients, all of which are in Oregon City. We also are able to serve the youth in our community that receive a pandemic EBT style card to help offset the cost of school lunches. It was called PEBT, but now it's an additional benefit that kids can get who are reliant on the school lunch program. That can also go for additional buying power as well.
Did you receive any of the grants from Clackamas Soil and Water Conservation District?
We got 4,700 from Clackamas Water Soil Conservation. These came in after my proposal was sent in. We also received, and that was for our Power of Produce Club. And then we also received 3,000 from On Point Credit Union, and that went directly to our Power of Produce Club, which is our nutrition education program for kids ages 5 to 12. Our farmers market funding is a federal fund from the GusNIP grant. That is for SNAP benefits, or more specific, double up food bucks, and that's a federal grant. And they base our amount on our how many people we serve each week.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Jess.
All right, thanks.
OCOC.
Melissa, would you like me to queue up the presentation? Oh, okay.
Keep it simple. So I'm Melissa Sebastian, the Aquatic and Recreation Manager in the Oregon City Park and Recreation Department, and I'm here to request funds to purchase our own equipment for our Movie in the Park program. We have been renting all of our equipment for our series ever since we started it, and it has cost us about $5,000 every year over the past several years. We recently received a quote that it would increase to $6,000, and so we looked and talked to Westland Parks and Rec, and they have a system they've been using, and if we were to purchase our own system, it would be about $11,000, which essentially would pay for itself within 2 years. I think that this would be a great way to use those funds, because it would not only make this program sustainable for residents in Oregon City, because it is residents attending these events. It's often residents walking to these events from their neighborhoods. And we rotate these events to different parks throughout the city. Every year we're doing them in different parks. But we can also take the savings each year and reallocate that to new events, which is something that is a huge topic within our department. I think it's coming out of a lot of our master plans that we have wrapped up, is that there are more events that the public wants, and in order to do those, we need more budget allocated to that, and we would be able to use the cost savings to expand more events and programs, and that's what we would do with that savings.
Questions? Go ahead, Rocky.
You answered the main question, which is the rental costs, which for someone that has done events in the past, I definitely know that that issue of should we just buy our own stuff after so long. So I appreciate that, and I think it does make sense to do that. I guess the only real question I have goes back to a philosophy change that we've kind of gone back and forth multiple times on this body, which is, do we fund city budgeted items? And in the past, we had a lot of city projects that would come to Metro Enhancement. I remember the flower baskets was one that would come every year. And we eventually said, hey, if this is a public works issue and need that they want, then build it in your budget and stop coming to Metro Enhancement. So we've gone back and forth on that. I think we've kind of weaned off of funding city things. I'm not negating the importance of this, and I kind of just think the reason for kind of being careful of that is then we have every city department coming and asking Metro Enhancement for money that should be in the budget. So I would almost, as a city commissioner, recommend that we might have a conversation about the event funding that we have, general fund money that we have to maybe tackle this, and maybe leave that $10,000 on the pile for these other grants. That's just going in line with where we've gone the last, 5 or 10 years with Metro Enhancement for funding city projects. So I'm open either way. I think it's it's a minimal amount of money for the continuation of a program, so I support it. I just think we should want to question that as commissioners, city commissioners, but it's up to debate.
Questions? Other questions or comments? How many years have we been doing concerts in the not in the park, movies in the park?
I think it's been 14 years.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I think the first year we did it was from Metro Enhancement grant funds.
Yeah, we were trying it out.
I think the very first year was from a grant from this committee, and then from the positivity that was received from it, it was budgeted for since then.
Well, I think the request is reasonable, and I think there's a bigger question beyond this particular grant about if our community is wanting more events. That's a whole nother topic, because we don't have anybody that does events in Oregon City, and that's it's coming out of everybody else's staff time. So that's a completely different topic. But anyway, thank you, Melissa. Great report.
Oh, Mayor?
Yes.
There's a stipulation that with regard to city-sponsored events through this program, there's a 20%, I guess 20% demarc. In other words, 20% of the total can go towards city projects. And so you can't go beyond that.
20% of the total amount that we have to allocate?
To allocate.
Yes. Is this beyond that?
No.
Okay, that's what I did the math. Okay, thank you. Oregon City Porch Fest. Oh, sorry, did I skip somebody?
Park Place Neighborhood Association.
Well, they're number 10 on my list that you gave me, so sorry.
Sorry, we could do it either way. In the order of presentation, that's on the.
It's on this list too, so.
Yeah.
Who is it?
Come on up, Porch Fest. Okay. Already called you. Park Place will be next.
Okay. Would you like me to cue up the presentation that I have? Okay.
Kind of got it ready.
Hi, my name is Amanda Dexter. I am an Oregon City resident.
I'm Kyle Murphy. I'm an Oregon City resident.
And also with Porch Fest, we have Lisa Cowgill.
I am an Oregon City resident.
She prepared our grant proposal very generously. We're just going to talk really quickly because we only have 2 to 3 minutes, so we could talk about Porch Fest all day. But we started Porch Fest last year, 2023, with a grant from the Oregon City Arts Commission. We put it together with 2 volunteers in about 6 weeks on a shoestring budget, and it was wildly successful. So we estimate about 1,000 people attended Porch Fest. We had 23 performers on 18 different porches throughout the McLaughlin neighborhood. This year we have 6 volunteers, so our coalition has grown. If you're just looking at our slides, you can see pictures and see about what Porch Fest is, but it's a free music festival that we put on in the McLaughlin neighborhood. So performers are on porches, they're on in businesses, community spaces. So we've grown from 2 volunteers to 6 volunteers. We now, at this point, have 30 performers and 20 locations. We're hoping for 50 performers and 50 locations. This year, we're adding a main stage. We'll not only be showcasing the performers that are performing at Porch Fest, but also the locations. So bringing some attention to some of our historic homes in the McLaughlin neighborhood. We've included a battle of the bands that Kyle and some members of the Oregon City Arts Commission have been working on for youth performers to participate in Porch Fest. I don't think that ended up in our proposal. We are also, we became a 501c3 corporation in March. So a lot of this is happening really fast for us. This year we need help. The event is growing by leaps and bounds. It's become very popular. We're doing a lot of promotion. The coordination and promotion of this event is very time consuming. So we do want to offer a stipend to the people who are putting in those long, long hours of work. We would like to also pay our performers and offer them a stipend for their performance. In order to put together a main stage,
30 seconds.
Requires insurance, equipment rental. You guys know how much all that stuff costs. We need additional signage, printing, advertising, and the list goes on. So that's why we've come to ask for your consideration for the Community Enhancement Grant this evening.
Questions?
So congratulations, that's a huge growth from last year to this year. What are your plans going forward to kind of accommodate if you continue to have this kind of growth, budget-wise, funding-wise, volunteer hours?
So we are definitely hoping that the event will continue to grow. What we would like to do is eventually be able to sustain the event without help from the city or from Metro, to be able to rely on sponsorships and sale of merchandise and those sorts of things. However, it does take time to build up that reputation and to have that kind of support from the community. So eventually we would really like to not rely on community funds anymore at all and just let Porch Fest be its own thing.
Thank you.
I know that you said you modeled your proposal last year after Milwaukee's, and could you just briefly explain how things are the same or how you've improved on what they did?
Yes, so Milwaukee's Porch Fest is, it's very grassroots. It's kind of low maintenance, if you will. But we envision a more, I'm trying to think of the right word, but we envision maybe a little bit more of a complicated event. We are including a main stage, so that is something that Milwaukee does not do. The anticipated location of that is right at the top of the elevator on the rooftop parking lot of the Elevate Plaza building. So that'll be a pretty neat spot for people to go and experience some live music. But that's different than Milwaukee's. What else is different from Milwaukee is that we are consolidating this event into 2 nights. They do it over the course of an entire month. we have, and ours is bigger. We have more performers. Within the first year, we were able to get as many performers as Milwaukee has the whole time.
I was going to ask you about the main stage, because obviously that's adjacent to a residential area, and we do have a noise ordinance. So there's a certain time that the noise is, and we didn't, as far as I'm aware, we only received a couple of complaints last year about Porch Fest, which is really good. So be very aware of the noise, because the city police will come and shut it down.
Well, we do have a plan for that. 9:30 is,
9:30.
we're done.
Yeah.
And then we'll be putting up door hangers this year. That'll be new, that the porch hosts are going to be asked to distribute those within a block radius. And also, we're going to let OCPD know what's going on, so that they at least know that this is an official event that's okay.
I found out about it last year after the fact, so that's, they do
One of
need to
those
know.
things we didn't think of last year, we were throwing it
They need to know
together.
everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's pretty good. Yep. And then you said you wanted to have 50 performers and 50 porches?
50 different locations.
50
So
different locations.
not just porches,
Well,
but also
whatever. Yeah,
businesses are
locations,
included. Yeah, we have several businesses on 7th Street that are participating.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yes, go right ahead.
I'm just looking at the budget here, and you already mentioned that you wanted to use some of the funds, sounds like for the people who are helping to coordinate the event, also for the performers. I see equipment, supplies, there's 20,000 for event costs, 500 for insurance. Could you maybe just expand a little bit on things like, are you gonna be renting PAs? You know, what's included in the $20,000 for event costs and supplies and things like that?
Okay. Unfortunately, I don't have the exact breakdown that we did with me tonight. But a lot of that is equipment rental. We will not necessarily be providing equipment to every single porch, but that will be spent on equipment for the main stage area, mainly. Does that answer your question?
Part of it.
Okay. Do you think that counts as equipment? No. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we had a separate line item for printing and those kind of costs.
There's like materials, equipment,
That might
supplies.
be the materials and supplies.
Insurance. So just curious kind of what the details of some of those items would be. Are things like PA gonna be included in this?
That would be included in that. Yeah.
Do you have any idea how many PAs you would need?
Oh, for the main stage?
Or, I don't know, if you have 50 stages, do you need 50
no, we won't be
PAs?
renting PAs for all those stages.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be insane.
I think she said they would be for the main stage, not for
Main stage
the main
only?
stage. They're not
Okay,
providing for the
gotcha.
performers.
No.
So the most of the rest of the stages are like acoustic
Yes,
performances?
but no, people do, some performers will bring their own amplification systems.
We had a full rock band last year, so
Mm-hmm.
it's doable.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Building on that question, because this is turning into a larger, there's a main stage and all of that, is there any requirement for restrooms or ADA accessibilities?
As far as ADA accessibilities, I'm not sure. That's something we need to look into. We will be required to provide restrooms, so that's included in that equipment cost.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Burke Place, come on down.
Good evening. Jackie Hammond-Williams. I'm a resident of Park Place neighborhood, and I'm the treasurer of the neighborhood association. I have Brogan with me, and if I can get through it quick enough, I'll let him have a few words, but no guarantees. We're here, I'm here as a member of the Park Place Neighborhood Association to ask for funding to expand on the project that we received funding from you guys last year. We were really grateful. It's been a great project. It started off a little slow because we ran amok of the changeover in parks department staffing. So we went through like 3 parks managers, then we got hit by the planning department to have a type 2 design review, which we weren't expecting. So we kind of got off to a late start, but we're closing in on finishing that one, and we're so excited to bring in front of you the proposal to expand and build on what we've already got. So you've probably read, hopefully, the grant proposal, but I'll just reiterate, we want to add on an additional 800 feet of new trail in the woods. Park Place Park sits at the base of Holcomb Hill, which is in the wagon train corridor. So it's very historic. It has interesting and unique geographical and geological aspects to it. So we want to build on the interpretive signage. This year, in this project that's just finishing up, we were unable to add any interpretive signage about the native peoples, simply because we reached out and we didn't get any feedback, so we didn't want to put our foot in it and create something which isn't true. But we have finally reached someone in the Confederated Tribes, the Grand Ronde, and the parks manager and myself will be meeting with them in July, maybe August, and if we get this grant, we're going to really expand on that interpretive signage. And we've talked a little bit in this first phase about the pioneer and the settlement of this area, but the second phase will be promoting the native peoples. And along that line, in this next grant proposal, we're going to have a 3,000 square foot garden area, demonstration area of native plants and pollinating plants, but also plants that the native peoples would have used, in their society. Gosh, yeah, there's so much to tell you about this. We did get a grant from the Xerces Society, and so they're giving us some plants to add to this project, mainly pollinator plants, native plants.
Run out of time, Jackie.
Oh, Brogan, sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, to introduce myself, I'm Brogan Abels. I am a resident of Oregon City, and I am a crew lead for the Rivers of Life Foundation. I just wanted to quickly say that we actually have our crew here to show support. I personally have a lot of interest in the uses of plants and in native plants, so I will be certain that our signage is correct, and we will very much reiterate on the signs that we don't recommend eating anything.
Definitely. That's important. People are, well, let's just say if you don't put it down. So, questions? So I believe for your next presentation on this, you should mention it's the Barlow Road corridor.
Barlow Road corridor,
It's
yes.
the Barlow Road.
Correct.
Yes, the city has that as a designated corridor from information we received from Clackamas County. I will say one thing that caused me a little bit of angst in your report is when you put down some found objects were a pioneer vintage. And that was part of the archaeology part of me coming out going, okay, was there anybody who looked at these before they were removed? Because the big thing is that you want to find them and leave them in the place where they were found so they can be properly interpreted.
I can answer that. We did find a wagon hub, and that is still left where it was found. And we actually got donated by a resident of Oregon City.
You said somebody else gave wheels.
Yeah, whole axles of a covered wagon. And our secretary of the Park Place Neighborhood Association has reached out to an historian that actually verifies artifacts such as this. So he's going to come out and take a look at it so we can really pinpoint the vintage, what exact, was it a Conestoga wagon or was it some other wagon? So, yeah.
Are you going to be outlining, since it comes over that, where the corridor is for the Barlow Trail? I mean, the city has it mapped, so that's something easy that you can find out.
Yeah.
And you say if it's part of the corridor, then it probably should be, people should know where that is.
Yes, yes.
I mean, we all know that they didn't come in a straight line.
Right.
But there were places where they couldn't go other than a straight line, like coming down Laurel Hill, they did not come.
Well, part of this
By the rep.
this next stage of the project will be doing a really nice big entry interpretive board, which will speak to that. So yes, absolutely. And I have some ideas for getting the word out if you want to hear about those, but.
Yeah, I saw the first phase, so that was good. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Willamette Falls Symphony. And you guys don't have a PowerPoint, do you? Okay, good.
Well, we are going to play the entire Beethoven Ninth Symphony.
Not tonight, you aren't. Sorry.
The 3-minute version.
Yeah, you're gonna
I'm
get
Carol
that.
Dumont. I'm with the board of the Willamette Falls Symphony Orchestra, which is Oregon City's symphony orchestra since 1981. And this,
And your city of residence?
my city of residence is Oregon City. I'm from Park Place as well. So this is Mark Perlman. He is our conductor and music director, and also a member of our board. And he's been the music director for 23 years, I think.
Yeah. And I live in West Lynn, but I can see Oregon City from my house. Actually, it's really true. I live in Willamette, and I can see right across the river.
There you go.
Yes, I'm the conductor of Willamette Falls Symphony, and we've been here, probably get to where we perform in 5 minutes from right where we are right now in Oregon City United Methodist Church, and we've been based there for 20 years. And the best thing, not only do we perform there and rehearse there, but they let us store our percussion equipment there, and they give us 3 file cabinets in one of their offices to store our music library, which is huge. We have, depending on the repertoire, we have about 50 to 70 members, and we have a 2-part mission. One is to give musicians a place to play, especially musicians who aren't professional. They're not going to be playing in the Oregon Symphony, but they love music. Some of them are teachers or have been teaching in the schools or are retired professional musicians, but a lot of them are just, I don't know if amateur has a bad connotation. They are enthusiasts. And we have 5 concerts in a season, including a family concert. We also produce the Oregon Mahler Festival, which is kind of an all-city larger orchestra. We have between 90 and 100 people in the orchestra every summer from all over, and sometimes a choir as well. We have a youth concerto competition. We have played summer Pops concerts. We were for a while part of Oregon City Concerts in the Parks. We did once played the 1812 Overture with
live cannons
courtesy of the National Guard. We play standard repertoire, but we also play unique music by diverse composers. We're still recovering from the pandemic, and we were not able to do anything for a year and a half. What we would like the grant for is not only to sustain what we're doing, but especially to increase audience. And one thing that I long for the days when I never ever hear again people say, I didn't know there was an orchestra in Oregon City, but they say that a lot. All the costs are going up. They pay me.
You're going to run out of time.
Yeah, they pay me, and we pay the string principals, and occasionally a substitute player. But
you're running out. You're out of time.
Thank you. Any questions you have? I'd be happy to
Unfortunately,
answer.
sorry. Questions?
I have a question.
Go right ahead.
I'd like to know how many of you musicians live in Oregon City?
It goes up and down. Probably, I would say 20%.
Yeah, probably. And it used to be, well, I don't know. I think people move so much.
How much is
Marguerite used to
20%?
live there.
It was more, and a lot of those, like when they formed the orchestra, it was more. And we don't tell no. Anybody who wants to play, we don't say no. So if they come from Beaverton, we had somebody driving from Hillsborough every week to play in Oregon City.
Well, I'd like to correct that. We don't say no to string players. We are considerably more selective with respect to brass and winds.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wrong records.
She's asking you for a general number.
Yeah.
I don't have the specific number, but it's about 20% of the orchestra. That's
At least.
60%, so that,
And then that
Well,
comes
don't
to
have
my
any in the
second
orchestra.
question, and that is, where does your audience come from?
they come from,
Mostly local?
a lot of them from Oregon City, but there are people who come from other areas down to Oregon City. But, you know, one thing there are a lot of people, especially here, they don't want to drive downtown to hear a concert. It costs a lot to go downtown to hear a concert, and if they can hear one right in their own city, then they're happy to do that. And we usually play in the afternoons, which is more beneficial for older people who don't like to drive at night. And it's a much more, it's a smaller venue. It's not a concert hall. It's just a big room, and we set up chairs, and people are right up to us, and we have cookies, and they can talk to the musicians at the intermission. They can talk to me. And it's a very kind of communal activity, as opposed to, you know, there's the stage and the door is locked and you can't talk to anybody. We're very community-based.
Thank you. So I will say, I had no idea that we had, which is
There's $5 right there.
which is especially sad because I'm a season ticket holder to the Oregon Symphony, and just this last weekend, actually, I played fourth bassoon with the Salem Phil, and so I'm really excited to hear about this, and I really hope that we can do some more work to make sure that more of our residents know about this huge asset to our community. And I know our friends at Hannah Grayston take me up on this, but if you're looking for a bassoonist, please reach out.
I think that might be a conflict.
Well, one of the things, I didn't know anything about Hannah Grace, but one thing that we have done, we got a small grant from the estate of a retired percussionist, and he wanted to encourage music education for kids, and so we sponsored lessons for string players, because the schools, they often have band, but they don't usually have strings. And we arranged to have them borrow instruments from a local music shop. And so they could take in lessons and have an instrument. And in one case, the girl was so enthusiastic, the orchestra members pooled together money and they just bought her the instrument, a cello, that she got to keep.
I realize that this is your first time applying for this, and I asked staff, did you get help in answering the questions? You said a lot in your application, but some of them were not very specific at all. You know, it says here, why are you requesting the funds? Basically, I think you answered that in a different question, is you're going to use it all for personnel, for primary, and then some equipment, I guess you said in here.
Well,
so you can clarify.
I mean, it is personnel and equipment, but part of it is, and for the summer music festival, that also is, most of our expenses are personnel, because we're very fortunate that the church that we play in gives us extremely reasonable rent. If they weren't so cooperative, we'd be spending a lot more on rent. But I mean, part of it is survival. I mean, you were asking other people that, what's the metric? Our number one metric is survival. And I've talked to people from the Clackamas County Arts Coalition, is that what they call it? Arts Alliance. And they said that the fundraising atmosphere for nonprofits is as hard now as she's ever seen in 30-some years. We applied for a RAC grant, and then we found out, RAC doesn't have any money for anybody who's based in Oregon City or in Clackamas County. And you guys probably understand the politics of that more than I do, but it sounds odd.
No, we don't.
We got a RAC grant last year for $5,000, and this year, because we're based in Clackamas County, we're not eligible. I don't understand.
Yeah, again, we've been asking, for information from others about metrics. What is how do you plan to track, who's coming? I don't know whether you've done this before in your previous concerts?
We have occasionally, but not as a general rule all the time.
Well, it's going to be a general rule, so I think it's something you should be doing, period. That way you know where people are coming from and how to reach them and all of that. So I just, like I said, I just didn't get all the information that I would have liked to have seen in your application, and I can't do anything about that. I know staff talked to you, so that's the best I can do at this point in time.
Well, and I said something in the application that I was a little unclear on what to do with in-kind donation amounts, because the number of volunteer hours we have is enormous. And I did the math. I got out my spreadsheet and came up with $200,000 worth of in-kind donations, but that would skew our budget and make it look weird. So I asked the staff person, she said, well, put 20,000 there, but explain it. So I explained it in the text. But so that, if you think about that, the amount that we pay personnel is tiny compared to the amount that people donate in their time to play. Almost everyone is a volunteer.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we have on our agenda that we are taking a break. One other thing we want to add.
One moment.
One moment, please. Talk amongst yourselves. I see you guys are drinking the beverages that I brought for the Youth Advisory Commission. I forgot about that. I brought cases of LaCroix for the Youth Advisory Commission.
Ann pointed them out to us.
Did she?
I went back there and
Where did she point them out?
So I'm going to ask for everybody's attention for one more moment, please.
Well,
If I could have everybody's attention for another couple moments.
We're not over yet, please. Hello.
Everybody, could you
Hello?
please take a seat?
We're
If
not
you want to
over yet.
talk,
This
you can
is
go
not
out in the lobby and close the door behind you. So that would be much better. Mr. Graham has asked for our attention.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And I appreciate everybody's patience as we work through all the different proposals. We have a lot of really great projects being proposed. I made a mistake, and what we have one additional presentation that I would like for you to entertain. We did receive an additional application that should have been in your package that went out to you at a time. And that did not, and that's my mistake. The grant applicant shouldn't be penalized for a mistake that I made. The organization is the Clackamas Women's Services. They are a current participant this year in the 23-24 Enhancement Grant Round, and they are applying for a second grant. We have 2 staff people here from Clackamas Women's Services. I would like to share the application with you, and then you can decide what you would like to do.
Okay, well, why don't you share it with us, but we are taking a break now.
You're taking a break?
I need a break right now.
All right, I appreciate that.
I'm holding off until it got to that part of the agenda, so
Thank you.
we're taking a break. the application? Okay, we're not back yet, so. Yep, we're good. Keep going. All right, we are back from our adjournment break, and we're going to continue with application number 13, which is the Clackamas Women's Services Supporting Youth Safety Through Violence Intervention and Prevention Education. And you can come on up.
Would you guys like me to queue up your presentation?
They only have 36.
Oh, 3 minutes.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to,
Okay.
you're not going to be able to see that.
That's totally fine.
Is it 3 minutes long?
We can make it 2 minutes long.
Okay.
We're good.
I just think, just cut to the chase.
Yep, you got it. Hello, I'm Catherine Koch. I am a resident of Oregon City. I'm also the Counseling and Youth Program Director with Clackamas Women's Services.
And I'm Alex Gonzalez, Government Grants Manager, and I'm a resident of Tigard.
Yeah, so we are here to talk with you about CWS and are just really thrilled to share the success of the youth advocacy program that you all helped support last year at Oregon City School District. So the project funded, and we're looking to continue that funding to support a full-time youth advocate at Oregon City High School. They also serve the full feeder system, so they're able to be mobile within the school district to provide services to youth and families at elementary and middle schools as well. We focus on providing individual services for that safety planning. I know you all have all those services in the document that you're reviewing. I'm really proud this year we were able to launch a 10-week healthy relationships group at Oregon City High School. That was really successful. I think that's really important when we're thinking about folks navigating interpersonal violence and healing from trauma, to be able to develop in community those healthy relationship skills. And then I know you've asked several questions related to outreach and communication. That's one of the big pieces that the youth advocates focus on at the beginning of the school year and through the entirety of the year. Part of that is in partnership with the counseling team. So we worked with them this year to create a video related to our services. The youth advocate is also teaming up with our violence prevention education team, who also serves Oregon City. They go into the health classrooms. And so the youth advocate partners with them on the lessons that have high disclosure rates to ensure that we have follow-up for students who are disclosing in the classroom. At the beginning of the school year, they also go to the classrooms to make sure that students know who the youth advocate is and where their office is located at the high school. In addition to the outreach, we've also been really focused on providing training and support to school staff and admin, so providing professional development at the beginning of the school year as well as during Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And that's been a really successful way to make sure that not only students are getting the services through the youth advocate, but we're also bridging the gap to make sure that staff and admin have the knowledge and the tools to be able to create, to be able to support youth impacted and also create the connections to the youth advocate located in Oregon City School District. And we're just really excited to be able to continue that. We've seen a 30% increase in terms of youth that we've been able to serve in Oregon City School District. And that's also included partnerships with the SRO, our law enforcement, and if youth are navigating DHS. Thank you, and I'll just leave it there.
About how many students have you been able to
serve this year?
Sure.
Yeah, so this year we serve 46 within Oregon City School District.
Wow. 46 too many. Other questions? Since you guys just got this, go ahead.
This is a program that was continued from last year going to the next following year. As a teacher at Oregon City High School, there's been a fair turnover in counseling staff. How is that going to continue over into next year without having to start fresh?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have our MOU outlines partnership meetings. So we always meet in August, and those happen monthly. So whoever's the lead counselor, we've been working with Sarah and then the principal over there. So those will continue on a monthly basis.
Thank you.
Marie or Eric?
Thank you. I did have one question. Is your program specifically, is it kind of gender agnostic, or is it specifically for female identifying students?
We serve folks of all genders.
Thank you.
Anybody else? And then you were going to say a little bit more about the outreach.
Oh, yeah. So part of, I heard you ask about communication, and that's really important to make sure students know that the services are there. So one of the things we do at the beginning of each school year is we're going to back to school nights. We're doing any of the tabling opportunities we can at the high school or the middle schools. The violence prevention lessons. So whenever our violence prevention team is in the health classrooms, we're teaming up with them to make sure the youth advocate is in that space, as well as last year we created a video that was shown to students about the services and healthy relationships. We'll continue to do that, working with the counseling team to figure out other opportunities to be able to do that kind of outward facing communication to students. And then of course, CWS has a really robust communications program, so we're utilizing multiple social media platforms and our website to be able to do that outreach to the wider Oregon City community for parents and adult community members.
I think in the reality of the world, you'd like to probably be out of business from having to do this.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Given the way things are you seeing an increase in the number of people that are being, in the high school, that are being made aware of this, that are reaching out?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's transformed how many youth we're able to serve. Being located at the school has made a huge difference. I didn't pull the actual numbers, but the first year that we did this, when we were doing youth advocacy just on a mobile basis, so not even co-located, we saw a 1,300% increase in the amount of youth we were serving. It was amazing. And so recognizing, through the pandemic, we weren't able to be mobile into classrooms. We knew we needed to create a different model. So to create that access for students, so that co-location model, we've seen really great success with our DHS partnerships, our behavioral health partnerships, and we wanted to ensure that that was the same access for youth. So school-based it is.
Seems like there's a lot of crossover between some of the programs that we're talking about potentially funding, because obviously it has to do with mental health, obviously it has to do with outreach, obviously it has to do many times, as I'm assuming you would tell us, that some of the results of the situations that happen result in drugs. So it seems to me there's a lot of cross-pollination that could and should be happening with the other groups that are there.
There's a lot of people in this room I want to have conversations with after hearing their proposals.
So.
Yeah.
I would think so. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so why don't we end that, and if you haven't had a chance to score this particular application, why don't we just take a few minutes and everybody can do that, and then we will move on to the next part. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, everyone. We'll take another short recess.
Yes. Yep.
Are you collecting our?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
in a minute or so. All right, we're going to come back from recess, and we will have a presentation by our illustrious finance director. Where the drum roll comes in.
That's right.
There we go.
There's the wizard.
He was waiting for the brass section. How about that?
I'm going to share my screen here.
You should be able to present.
Oh, yes. It's the psychedelic portion of the event.
Audio isn't coming.
Yeah, it's too quiet now.
And Matt, if you're able to speak louder, you're a little soft on this end, if that's possible. Thank you.
Better, but not loud.
You were louder earlier. I don't know what happened, but you were really. Go ahead.
Hey, so I appreciate this growing. Looking at here is a list. This is a tabulation of all the results of the scores. The organization, the name of the project, the individual scores, results, and then the average score. And over this column here is the original award request. So this list has been sorted by the average score from top to bottom. And on the bottom of this column here, you'll see the total request for awards was $375,000. Yep, it's up.
Okay, as he said, they're sorted by, from top to bottom, so we have, and I don't see your line, so maybe your line is
Just in the pink.
under the pink. Well, I see that line, but I thought he drew it further up. At 39?
Yes.
Oh, okay, that didn't look like what you'd highlighted before, so. Go ahead.
Well, I think one of the first things we need to talk about is the amount on the Oregon City Arts Commission line. And we need to decide whether or not we think there's a conflict, or should that go back to their original $28,000 request? Because that changed the total to $394 then.
I'm in agreement that we should contemplate adding the other $20,000 back in, particularly because this is their year 2,
Yeah.
so they can't punt it till next year.
Right, I would agree. Everybody in agreement with that? Okay, did you hear that, Matt? Yep, barely. It's at the top of our screen. They're saying that Matt isn't professional.
Can you use the microphone, Matt?
Yeah, it's coming out really softly.
I'm soft.
Yeah, it's coming out of the computer. It's not coming out on the system. We need
Maybe
AV.
that's not far enough. Maybe it's too far away. He thought it would, it's a wireless mic. He thought it would.
No, it's not coming out up there.
It's not coming out. Can you hear me now?
No, we can only hear you through the computer. Yeah, why don't you do that? Coming coming out from behind. There's no curtain back there, by the way, just in case you're wondering. It's not like the Wizard of Oz. Well, maybe it is like the Wizard of Oz. Kind of like the Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz.
That helps. Having to see it a little bit better, that helps.
They just zoomed in and we're missing part of the screen.
Make sure that mic is turned off so we don't get the feedback.
Out from behind the curtain.
You thought I was a lot shorter, didn't you? I hand that back to you.
Definitely wasn't karaoke time.
Okay, so
Uh-oh. Now we're getting,
It's coming through the computer.
It's the computer speakers.
Yeah, mute your computer.
yeah.
how's that?
Yeah. you
Okay.
need to speak for it. Okay.
Okay, so where we left off was that I understand that there was an approval of the, to change the Oregon City Arts Commission from 8,000 to 28,000. Okay, so that's reflected here on the screen. That still won't change the order that these are sorted in, but that does make the total now 394,000 of requests, and the line would still be drawn where it's at below the 39,000. So the top grants above the line would total up to 344,000, which would be under the threshold that the committee originally established as their award.
Well, we can either accept this as this is. There's no guarantee that everybody's going to get any money, and we don't have an obligation to give everybody funding. So just not to pick on anybody in particular, so we can go with what you have voted on here with your scores, or another option.
So just a question, man. So you've decided to allocate the full $28,000 to the Arts Commission.
My suggestion was we consider
We put it back in.
that. We put their original request back in,
Okay.
and now we can discuss it.
Okay.
So I think that their suggestion or their recommendation is, rather than go through a lot of rigmarole, that when it comes down to making the decision about the mural, that they just punt that to the city commission. I don't have any problem with having to review that.
The only thing, though, is that in the ordinance, it says the city commission has the ability to, the city commission doesn't have that ability, only under appeal. So you can't change the law to suit the situation. So this commission, I mean, with regard to the Arts Commission has the power by ordinance to approve murals.
We can call it up.
And then if someone who was being considered for a mural had an appeal, they would go to the city commission. But in this case, it's the Arts Commission itself.
I think we have the authority to review.
And I think it's probably important, just to make sure that we don't run into trouble down the road, legal ones anyway, is to make sure that our city attorney chimes in and gives his indication.
We've already made that suggestion.
So therefore.
That will be part of the condition of if this is granted.
If this is granted. Is that the position of the rest of the committee?
Yeah, we already kind of said that.
Okay.
I think, excuse me. I think in addition to that kind of notation for the record, I think we also, for Kenema Historic Cemetery, need to put on record that the funds are contingent on the land use issue being addressed.
That
Can't
was-
buy a thing if they can't put the thing there.
Yeah, and they need to get that taken care of forthwith.
But in addition to that, if
It's not allowed,
it's not allowed,
then they need to come
and
back
they
with
ask for a replacement, there's a pretty good chance that that price will go up. And do we consider that in a separate, session, or do we consider that in the next year's budget or whatever? I don't know. We won't know that until
No, we will not-
later
we
on,
won't-
but
we will not know that.
there's a chance that could go up if they're gonna have to build a separate shed or something like that.
Or, yeah, bring some other type of a building in. So we can't answer that question until we know. We can't really go back in and, amend their application other than that, because there are a number of things like this that come up. There was, they didn't apply, but I was aware of one that somebody might apply. And the first thing I said to them, make sure that where you want to put this is on your property, because I don't think it is your property. And they did go back to double check, and I think that may not have been the answer they were looking for, but that was the first thing I said. Can't install a project if it's not on property that you do not own and you do not have the property owner's permission.
Well, are we ready to kind of discuss?
Sure, go right ahead.
Okay. Well, I don't know where I'm going to land, but I don't like the idea of just drawing the line. And I know I'm not saying that was your idea. You're just trying to help us out. But there's a 1/10 of a point difference between the bottom and the next to the bottom, and it seems pretty arbitrary to just lop an entire grant off over a rounding error. When I looked
Why
at...
are you assuming it's an error?
No.
You said rounding error.
I mean, the way Excel works.
Okay.
Excel rounds, so that could be 19.39 and 19.41. It could be 200ths apart. Anyway, the point I'm getting at, those are essentially the same score in the collective wisdom of this group. And it doesn't seem at all fair to me to eliminate one when we essentially ranked them the same. I think we need to have more other opinions about the movies in the park. And I understand that it makes sense financially, but I agree with what Commissioner Smith said. If we're talking about $11,000 and we're buying equipment for the city to own, it seems like the city should pay for that, to me.
Our budget cycles, we're on a budget cycle right now.
Well, there's contingent amounts.
We're having a budget update coming up very
Yes.
soon.
Well, it's a budget update discussion. It's not to change it, but.
Yeah.
And I have to say, one that I have a concern about, when I look at these, I have a tendency to, the ones that have a physical component, to me, rank a little higher, because we get something that lasts for a while. And then next, there's a group that are year-long programs. And then there's one that's a weekend, and it's $38,000. I have a problem with Porch Fest, not with the idea. I think it's a tremendous program, but that's one of the larger grant requests, and it's for one weekend. And I'm just not seeing the cost benefit. And again, I think it's a great program, but compared to, a physical improvement or a year-long program, those are my thoughts.
Well, I would tend to agree with you on the first part. I'm looking for things that are going to have, a physical improvement, and that's where like I said, when I started on this commission, I have a long history with this particular grant program. And we've changed it over time, and Metro has suggested some other changes. But it was, it started out only in the Park Place neighborhood to enhance the neighborhood to offset the impact of the transfer station. And so there were physical projects that we did as part of that grant. The sign at the bottom of the hill is a physical improvement. That staircase that goes up the hill is a physical improvement because people were sliding down there, and we had to sweet talk our friends at ODOT into allowing us to use that right away. But we are responsible for maintaining it. So those are the type of things that, I tend to lean towards, where it's going to be something that, 2 years from now, I can go and say, hey, that was a Metro Enhancement project. I know in the past there were some programs that were sponsored by the community college that all went to salary, and I know that it was going to help benefit our community members, but it's still hard to put that together to say that hiring this person is going to result in this, because it was a community-wide, county-wide program, and it was hard to isolate how it was going to, affect our residents. Obviously, I ranked the park thing fairly high because I feel it's an immediate benefit. But if there's an opportunity for us to make a budget amendment to fund that, I would be willing to do that. But I don't have the answer to that question right now, and we have this before us right now. So I'll just go down the line. I'll start with Judy. Any comments you want to make, Judy?
I appreciate what Commissioner Mitchell said about the last two items. I think they're both really worthy things. Can we change the amounts of what we award for a grant?
Yeah.
Can we just half them? I mean, I hate to just cut people off from anything. But anyway, that's one of my suggestions to this.
We've
and
done it.
trying to keep under the budget.
We've done it before.
Yeah.
But like I said, that people come into this, there's no guarantee that you're going to receive funding. It's not a guaranteed program.
Right.
So I don't want people to feel obligated to absolutely fund everything if they don't feel that it should be. But we can change the amounts. Again, it would be nice, but we don't have an endless pot of money to fund everybody. And I'm sure there were many other applications that came in that weren't complete, or they didn't do something or other. So, that's how it is sometimes. And I'm not trying to be hard-nosed about it. I'm just saying that, this is a grant program, and it's not the ever-ending funding of cash.
May I ask Mr. Zook a procedural question?
Absolutely.
Would it be possible to save various scenarios? So here's one scenario that's in front of us. If people made some suggestions to amend, as Judy was just suggesting, reducing some of the awards, and then save that as a second scenario, and then we can compare where we're at based on a few comments.
The column that says draft award would be where I would drop in the proposed changes, and then there's a sum at the bottom there. So there is an existing column to accomplish that, I believe.
Thank you.
Sure.
Look at taking some, if we're going to do that, we have to take some from everybody, at least at this point. Go ahead.
First, a procedural question. What are our programming requirements as it relates to these organizations acknowledging the funding that's come from the city? Like, this has been this project is in part sponsored by XYZ.
That's a good question. Every recipient enters into an enhancement grant agreement with the city, and things like the requests of reporting on residents and those kinds of things are included in the grant proposal. So yes, if there is something like an event, you can say this is brought to you with the sponsorship of the City of Oregon City Enhancement Grant, and that can be stipulated as part of the grant agreement.
Okay, and then a second thing on the parks issue. So I definitely understand the concerns that we have there. I will say, I think it kind of gets into the same territory, though, if we're looking at the Arts Commission one as well, which is also something that goes through the city. I will also say, that I know that in the last few years, we've invested a lot in grants, not this grant, but city-specific grants. And I think a lot of that includes dollars from our general fund that could go toward our departments being able to host these kinds of events. And that I think in the future, when we take a look at those grants that we've been funding for the last couple biennia, that we actually look at maybe investing those directly into our departments that could be putting on those events themselves. So I think given that we've been expending our money in that way, that it would be fair enough to allow our Parks Department to look into this, because they've been working a lot with other community organizations who have received funding from the city, and in part acting as a partner for them to be able to accomplish those projects. But again, I'll just say that if we're not going to do the Parks Department, then we shouldn't do the Arts Commission either.
I also have a procedural question.
That's a different question.
So, for example, in the instance of the Cemetery Association, because we're still waiting on determination on that, is that if we were to decide to fund that, would that money just be considered encumbered until the decision has been made on whether they can or cannot put the shipping container there?
Well, we said that if they weren't allowed to do it, they needed to come up with Plan B.
Mm-hmm. And then if
we could still fund them.
Okay. Is there an eventuality where, we decide not to fund a further proposal? Does that money then go back into the fund?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We've had some grant recipients not be able to fulfill their obligation, so they gave not physically gave it back, but said, no, we're not going to do it, and then the money went back into the pot. We haven't had that very often, but it has happened a couple of times.
Smith?
Go ahead. I was looking at Eric as a question, wanted to say something, so that's why I was not looking at you.
I understand what Commissioner Marl is saying. However, it's a little different.
Yeah.
Arts Commission. For instance, we fund a certain amount to Downtown Association. We don't eliminate them for event grants. It's the city department's completely different than that. So yes, it is a city thing.
Yeah, but DOCA is their own separate entity as well. The Oregon City Arts Commission falls under the purview of.
Right. We give them a budget, and if they want to apply for, we haven't made a stipulation that they can't file for a grant. However, we have pretty much in the past told cities, staff and departments not to do that. So I'm saying we've gone back and forth on it.
My point is that I think they both ought to be funded.
Right, probably through city budget.
Well, the Arts, as stated, they asked for additional monies, and it was not granted. So is there any adjustment we want to make to any of these, if you're talking about funding everybody? Go ahead, Eric.
Can I weigh in? So we have 3 grants here where they're asking for $50,000. One of them is the Clackamas County Arts Alliance, which seems like is the one with the lowest score. It seems like that's the one that's potentially on the chopping block. Although I gave that one a much higher score, I feel like it's better to decline a large request and fund all the other requests in their entirety than it is to try to fund every request at a lower amount as partial funding. Basically, that would enable us to give full funding to 11 proposals rather than giving everyone less than they asked for.
That's definitely one way to look at it. We've done that in the past as well. Anybody have any thoughts about that proposal? When we get down to the fiscal part, we kind of have to keep the heartstrings out of it. We're down to the dollars.
Will say, I personally found the Clackamas County Arts Alliance application quite strong. And I do understand some of the concerns that people have raised. I wonder at what level it's worth going through the grant process for them, because my basic math, and I'm no, specialist here, but I think we have at least $6,000 of remnant to get to our 350. Is that right?
344 to 350, yeah.
I look at that as based off of a tonnage estimate that's generally historically been quite conservative. So could we do a $10,000 grant to them, only going 4,000 over our approved amount, but knowing that we'll get that tonnage? I don't know if it's worth it to all of us to be able to at least partially fund them. That's just my last kind of thought of a creative counteroffer.
What say you?
The group, the commission, this committee has agreed to the 350 cutoff. And you also have a position that you don't necessarily, and you made it clear that it's not a given that everybody gets everything they want or you get anything at all. There's no commitment to that. So I guess the question is, and you also have to think about precedents. Because if you set the precedents that if you submit an application, you can probably almost guarantee you get something. I mean, whether you say so or not, what you do and what you say are two different things. So if you're going to hold true to the 350, it might be appropriate to entertain a motion from someone in terms of how you want to proceed with that 350 limitation. Do you cut someone out totally because you think it's a one-time event and the trade-off is not there? Or do you cut everybody lower in order to reach that 350? You really have basically two major options. So it's up to you, but you have to think about precedents.
I think to answer the question that was asked specifically, yes, there's a reserve of money in the Metro Enhancement Grant that is above and beyond the 350. So I don't see $6,000 would be financially there. It would be there. So
it won't break the bank.
Yeah.
But the point is the point you're trying to make is this is not a gimme.
I don't believe that I would have phrased what I considered as a gimme. I think I started out with, I found them to have great merit, and times are really hard for every single sector right now, arts in particular, as we heard tonight.
It's just staff's position that we're just trying to hold the line in terms of 350, and it is really the final decision as to how you want to deal with this. But I just want to bring forth the issue of precedence.
I remember a few years ago where we did go over budget. We all agreed to it, so that's why I suggested.
We've gone back and forth every few years, so there is no precedence.
Yeah.
And we've heard a couple of concerns about specific applications. Any other comments about that? I will entertain. You have a motion? No. Eric, did you want to make a motion with your suggestion?
Okay.
You just have to say it again.
Okay. I motion that we fund the top 11 proposals in their entirety. We fund 11. And
there was 13
we actually
total.
have 13.
Is there 13?
Yeah.
Oh,
remember we had
there was the final one.
Yes.
Sorry. We fund 12 and decline the proposal that's under the line on the spreadsheet, the Clackamas County Arts Alliance.
Is there a second?
I second that proposal.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? I'll call for the roll call.
Marie Andrews. Eric Bruckner.
Aye.
Christine Lewis.
Aye.
Commissioner Mitchell.
No.
Commissioner Marl.
Aye.
Commissioner Smith.
No.
Judy Schaefer.
Aye.
And Mayor McGriff.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
So I want to thank everybody for attending and applying, and be aware of some of those questions we asked, particularly mine, because it's all about being accountable, and you're going to need to put that information in your closeout reports. And please check in with staff as soon as possible. Yes, Mr. Morrow, sir.
Just a suggestion for the future. I don't know if this is the appropriate time for that.
Yeah, this is under other business.
Hello.
yes.
Can you all hold it down so we can
Yeah,
finish up,
we
please?
still have a meeting, so if you want to go out and talk in the hallway, let's take 2 minutes, and everybody, if people who want to leave can leave. Because we're just going to talk about some other stuff. So you don't have to stay. We're done with the applications. So if you'd like to go, we'll give you 2 minutes to vacate.
Should I wait?
Yeah. In less than 15 minutes, because we need to go home. Oh, you don't get to leave, Mr. Zook.
You have to stay.
You don't have to sit there, though.
Go back and just
Go back to your office.
He can sit over there. He can sit over by James.
Yeah. I know, it's always hard. We've been lucky, though.
Hanging out there, nobody said anything.
I was thinking about the citywide event, but that's come and gone.
And I get your point.
We've already given out that many.
My point wasn't that we shouldn't fund that.
No, I know. It's, we haven't been consistent, so.
Put the cool air on if it was getting hot, but if it's getting too cold, I can readjust.
I don't want him sweating to death over here while I'm freezing, so I can bundle up. He can't remove any more clothing, so, or should. Okay, go ahead. So we've got other business. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
So just, I don't know if this would better be kept to the next year's programming committee meeting or now, but I just figure I'll talk about it right now. I think this is a good opportunity to discuss application revisions, things that I think have become a common theme among our committee members as it relates to questions that we've been asking to our organizations, such as specifically, how is this going to impact Oregon City residents? How are we making sure that these dollars that we're investing are going back directly to Oregon City? And then another thing, getting to the KNEMA application, it may be good for us to require some sort of interdepartmental review, sending things maybe to community development, for example, as it relates to this specific proposal, or maybe making sure that things go to PD and code enforcement. I just think that it might make the process more cumbersome for staff, but I think that preventing those situations from coming to us in the first place would be beneficial.
Yeah, I'm not sure. There may be a way to say, does your proposal involve, they may not know, does your proposal involve anything that might require prior city approval? And there are lots of things that people.
That actually is in the instructions, I
Yes,
think.
I know it is,
but I think, yeah.
People don't,
And that's why I suggested the interdepartmental review.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't realize.
They're not paying attention.
Yeah.
Then we probably would need to change our deadline and move it up a little bit.
Well, it's a matter of if you're thinking about a project, you go ask them. You go, oh, is this blah, 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 blah? That's a quick and easy, like the Watershed Council said, we're working with parks to make sure that our proposed signing meets the city's requirements. I mean, boom, right,
I just say, I agree completely with what Commissioner Morrow said. If we want to see specifics on the applications, we've got to ask specific questions on the application.
And I would say that the other thing is that if they're this is a second grant request, that as part of the application, maybe we submit their closeout report from the previous time, because I think that would, it's what I found in the applications when they're multiple years, which is fine, they hardly refer to the previous one, because there is a question in here that says, if yes, please describe the grant project for which you received funding. And that would be, we got grant money for blah, 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 we served blah, 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 many people, da, 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 da. That's where I was looking for it in that, because that's what that said to me.
And a lot of my decisions on how I rank things was based specifically on the fact that people didn't answer specific questions, and I think we did ask them.
We did ask them, but they didn't quite answer them.
And that was really frustrating to me, and I think I called Ann and said, do you have a copy of that audit? Can I see that? What did they do? Because I wanted to know exactly what they did. And that's
Yeah, well, that's why I'm saying
biggest
maybe
problem with the arts.
maybe if they're doing phase 2, or they're doing a second grant request, that their closeout report be included. I think that would be helpful, just so we know.
Yep.
Yes.
I think there's also something to be said about the limit that we have on how many times you can do it, and seeing that we have just seen applications for people who went through a different entity to try and skirt around that. I think that's something that we should probably look into tightening up a little bit.
I guess one point of clarification in terms of closeout projects. If someone is applying, if someone was approved for a particular year, by the time they actually spend the money, they may not have.
They might not have their closeout.
Yeah, they may not have the closeout.
Well, maybe you could say something to the effect of,
Like
if you
their
applied
third
for a
quarter
prior grant,
report or
what are the metrics that you have achieved so far? As of the date of your submittal. That would be a way to cover it.
Like a status report.
Yes, yeah,
Everybody gives us quarterly updates, so the third quarter, if not the final closeout.
yeah. They could submit that. That seems to me pretty easy. Yes,
The one thing I like about this group is the application's always going to change, and it's never going to be done. This is never going to be done. We keep finding more, and I think we need to. I'm glad about that, but because we've gone back and forth on scoring sheets in the 16 years I've been doing this, and applications have been different every year. We change it, which is fine. But one of the things that came up for me, and we've been lucky to be able to fund most projects most of the time, which gives the illusion to the public, that it is a given. And the worry that I've always had with that is it's very easy to take a box and say, administration or staffing costs and $40,000 and event costs $20,000. I've done a lot of events. Right? And if I know I'm going for a grant that is a maximum of $50, guess what? You're probably going to apply for $50 and you're going to write the most you can in that box. But that doesn't tell us, I don't want to get to a bulleted, complicated budget, but for, if they're putting, $20,000 or $30,000 as event expenses, we kind of need to know what does that mean?
needs to be, you're saying it needs to be more
It's like,
detailed.
okay, it's outhouse, and then it's chairs, and it's renting this, and it's renting that. But it also could just be a number that's thrown in there because, we're going to shoot for the sky and hope we get the $50,000. And I know how that works. We all kind of know how it works. So it's a little bit better to kind of have, give us an idea of what those values are. Because when we get to a situation like tonight where we had to make that difference, a lot of these events probably could happen with the $30,000 instead of the $40,000, and we could have funded another thing. And that's the challenge. We all balance that and have to discuss that. So I think if there's a better way for us to understand really where that money is going, we can try to make that a little bit better. But that's a balance of having a 5-page budget to look at every grant. But it's already so hard to judge these against each other as they are because they're not comparable ever. So it's super complicated.
I will add in, I do think that, and I don't know if this is something that comes up in the closeout reports or not, but the methodology that they use to track metrics, if a lot of people here have said, oh yeah, we do outreach or we have a campaign planned, But, you know, how closely are they held to those numbers afterwards? If they say we're doing a social media campaign that's going to target 10,000 people in Oregon City, and they don't, you know, how, I guess,
We'd have to see their social media metrics, because they do track them if they look for them, yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I think, I think what's hard is we, you know, the staff provides, and I want to give the staff a lot of props, provides a lot of support to people. And sometimes it's the questions that they aren't asking, but I know, and a couple of applicants have told me that Anne was very helpful. She went through everything and explained further, even though they didn't ask the question. Because sometimes it's the question that they're not asking that, you know, that you need to tell them about. And the other thing I want to add is that, again, we need to get with our IT staff. I hate this form because you could see on different parts of it, different things were typed at different fonts, and it's the form, it's not the person. I filled out these things before myself, and it is frustrating beyond compare, I will tell you. Trying to fill in the block and.
Can I speak to that?
Yeah. And most people don't know how to fix it.
You can't. It's a fillable PDF, and it's a fixed field size, and the more characters you put in it, the smaller it's going to get. And that's the way Adobe fillable PDFs work. And I don't, unless we went completely away from that, I don't think you can change it. Because it's a fixed field, because you got to be able to print it on a page, right? And the more information you try to jam in the box, it gets smaller. And it looks silly, but I don't think you can change the way Adobe PDF works.
I will tell you that the application to apply for city commission was that way.
And it still is, because I did it a couple of weeks ago.
Mine was fixed.
Well, I can tell you, it still doesn't.
I don't know how it was done, but when I filled it in, everything was the way it was supposed to be, and it was the same font all the way through. I don't know what they did, but it got fixed.
I don't know if you guys are a Microsoft or a Google shop, but Microsoft Forms, you can do the same survey with set boxes.
What do we know what I don't know what
Microsoft.
It's Adobe.
Microsoft, yeah.
We're Microsoft.
It's an Adobe PDF, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just.
Yeah.
But the questions could be transposed into
No,
forms.
I will tell you that even though I appreciate the fact that the person hand wrote theirs, because everything fit, I didn't have to go back into the form and go press the X to get the rest of it that got cut off when this was printed. Yeah. And I thought, good for you. Some people still printed out the whole thing and they wrote it in, and I think that's perfectly acceptable.
Would the committee consider not funding personnel?
It depends on how much of a percentage. For me, it was over a certain percentage, and then I was like, no, that's too much for me.
Well, then that's a good point, because in order to give staff some guidance on this important issue, what percentage would you consider too much with regard, if you didn't want to do
That was the reason why I scored very lowly on the Clackamas workforce ones, because over 60% of their funding was going towards funding a position. And I said, well, what happens when that position goes away? Then you can't do this mission.
But if the guts of the proposal is
people,
you're talking about like administrative personnel,
right?
Not personnel interviewing a client face to face, but an administrative personnel.
I'm talking about administration of
13 says administrative costs are allowed as part of this project. What percent of the enhancement grants will be used for personnel services or admin costs? That's the question.
So
and your experience, what's a good number?
Grants that I see, so if we're talking about like a position, FTE that provides service, there's no limit to that, but a lot of grants will put a 10% cap on administrative overhead, or they'll call it something, so actually people in an office, making meetings and, doing all that administrative stuff. So I think that's what, so if that's your question, I would say 10%, but if we're talking about just FTE in general, I would say no limit. for my mind.
Yeah, my question only dealt with the minute, I was
Yeah,
speaking to
so,
administration.
yeah, I think
Well,
my
I
answer would
guess
be
I'm
10%
trying to
is
go back into
reasonable.
these applications and look and see what the percentage.
Case in point, the Clackamas Women's Services, there was a high amount of money that was set aside for personnel, but as they explained, that there's a lack of in-school therapists that can assist with this. It becomes more, the emphasis becomes more on those personnel instead.
That's what they do. That's
Yeah.
not really like
Yeah.
administration.
Here's one that's
I agree with
28%.
Eric. 10% on, for administration personnel sounds reasonable.
Could I get a motion? Second?
So moved.
Second,
I'm just trying to go through these and look and see what people had said.
but 10% is generally the
Yeah.
And that is for non-salary, so you're saying it's for administrative
admin.
costs.
This is an admin.
Component.
But we say admin
component,
and
which would
personnel, we
include-
combine question number 13.
But just so that we make it clear that we're admin and personnel
Because
are
if you're a
not.
program,
are
if
not
you're a
the same.
program staffer, we want to fund you.
Right,
Right.
right, right, right.
Okay,
This
this
is for
one,
admin.
let's see, this one was 30%.
But you have a,
That was OC together. Yep, that's 0.
That's
19. So call for the question. The roll. Sorry. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
10%.
And I'm abstaining because I didn't finish looking at my stuff. They didn't write anything in there.
One more comment about just kind of the procedural.
Yes.
In regards to the scoring sheet, I mean, there's some questions on here that I don't know how we'd go about this, but might want to maybe word a little differently. Because when I was scoring things, I felt like I needed to stick to what was written here. So for example, like with proposed budget, based on the proposed budget, does the applicant have sufficient resources to successfully implement the project? A lot of times the answer was, with that amount of money, they could do it. But if the question is that a good way to do it?
Right.
Is that a good allocation of funds? That's a different question. So it's like, yeah, they could do it, but should they? It's like, but I felt like I had to stick to the letter of what's written there. So, I mean, just maybe some things that we could kind of consider wording a
So
little
the last
differently.
one I looked at is Willamette Falls Symphony. Personnel 77%, admin 9%. I didn't score them low because I thought had a terrible program. They didn't answer the questions and I just wasn't going to try to assume what I thought they meant. I just can't. I had to just separate myself and say, okay, I'm going strictly by the criteria. That's how I rank stuff.
So based on what we're hearing from the committee in terms of staff direction, you agree, or do you agree? Do you agree that that there should be interdepartmental review? Is that agreed concurrently?
Well, if you guys look at it and you say, gee, I think this might need to be looked at by somebody else if they haven't done it themselves, the applicant.
Right, but I'm basically trying to get direction generally.
I'm just trying not to give them a lot more work. If you think something needs to go to a department, then you should send it to them, period.
Is that, I have to have some direction here.
Does everybody have a consensus that if there's something in the application that sticks out to them and they need to go through a departmental review, that they should just do it?
Yes.
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 Okay, that's what,
And it's going to be the ones that have a physical component.
Right. Like putting a sculpture on somebody else's property.
and some type of status report, if there is a multi-year request, you need a status report of the project.
We'd like some sort of understanding of a third quarter report. If they've applied, they're on year 2 on their Metro Enhancement, then that answers that question. That says, if you've applied for this in the past, what are your measures of success, how was it successful?
And the last point is, how is the project going to impact Oregon City residents? You want that question answered.
Well, impact, I don't know if that's the word, is we want to know how they plan to, I wanted to know how they're going to plan to serve Oregon City residents.
Okay.
Because the question is that, if the Willamette Falls Symphony would keep track of who's coming to their concerts, they wouldn't have been able to answer that question. We have 50% of 100 people who come, 50% of them are from Oregon City. We know that because we ask them when they come in the door, or when they buy the ticket, or whatever. And to tell us that they don't know,
That the committees, everybody else is a concurrence? Okay, so I want to make sure I cover what your wishes are. So that would be
I
one.
guess using that example very specifically, I don't care what they do up until the moment that they have our grant. Then I want them to start tracking.
right, exactly.
So
Yeah.
if untracked now, what metrics will you start to track?
Will use, yes, that's a good idea, yeah. Because I think when we first funded the SNAP program,
They didn't know.
they had a general idea. And now they're going back and tracking, because Jess asked me, she said, well, how will I know whether they live in Oregon City or not? And I said, well, if they put South something on their address, you know they don't. And if you're in doubt, you look it up, do a little Google search, and it'll tell you whether they're in the limits or not. So they're signing up, people are signing on a list. Or they could put down, they have a box, I think, on their thing that says resident. And unfortunately, as we've discovered, people don't know whether they live in Oregon City or not sometimes.
And the last one is that staff will check with legal counsel with regard to a potential conflict of interest.
Tell Bill we don't want a wishy-washy answer.
Yeah.
And then what is it that we would like to do about organizations that are going through different entities to apply for several years in a row?
Should we be talking about the project and not the
entity,
applicant?
Yeah.
I don't know, would that get to your concern?
I mean, I'm just throwing it out there because I think it's something that we ought to talk about. It's not something that I necessarily have a strong opinion on. I just think that when we have those standards in place, we ought to be clearer about them, because tonight we did have an application from a group that went through a neighborhood association, and because they're unable to
apply for a grant themselves.
Right.
Well,
And it makes it really hard to then look at the farmer's market, which we obviously all believe in as a top priority, and here they are preparing to take a year off.
Yeah.
So that's what makes it hard.
Yeah, and I worry about what's going to happen to the food insecurity. But then again, we could say the same thing about any of these other applications as well.
Well, that brings up a comment that I made last year. Is a good program a good program? Why does it need to take a year off?
Well, we're
I
trying.
understand, you want them to stand on their own 2 feet. But a program like SNAP that's an outright grant, I mean, they got to get a grant from somewhere.
It's not that type of a program. It's a program that has trickle-down effect from the agriculture department, and they're trying to.
That may not have been the best example.
No, but it's one of those programs where not having enough food to eat affects mental health, affects all these other things. It's kind of that.
So as an example,
priority.
Clearly the farmer's market one was the top ranked average among all of ours.
Yes.
If we don't change, who's to say that they can't just go through the Caulfield Neighborhood Association, because that's where their market is now, being in CCC, or going through the college to then apply for it. I'm not saying I think that we need to regulate it either way. I just think it's something we need to talk about. Because I think all of the other applicants are going to start seeing that and maybe go that direction as well.
We have to be smart enough to pick that out. Okay, being no further business, I'm going to join the meeting. Adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for all your hard work. Thank you, Eric, Marie, and Judy.